Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back, and it is time for the race. And this time, I'm not alone. I've got a friend, got a co-commentator in Josh Martin for at least the I think the first 40 minutes. You're with me before Jack reappears from wherever he is. I believe he's not in his house at the minute. But yeah, are you looking forward to this draft in the last second?
Indeed, I'm very excited. Paul Ricard's a track that's not favoured by many, but is a favourite of mine. So I'm very excited to be here and joining you in the box.
Well, I do like to refer to it as a car park, but I mean, if every car park in the world was a racetrack, I think it would be a better place, right? So, I guess it's a spicy car park.
Definitely. I mean, we've obviously got that huge long straight at the back that you can kind of see there on the screen, and particularly with the variety of cars we've got on track today, I think we could see some great overtakes and could really spice things up.
Yeah, especially with those cars at the front of the grid that maybe aren't quite great in a straight line, right? Yeah, I think we're looking sort of sixth on back. We have a couple cars that are more tailored towards that sector 2. So I think we're going to see that sort of change between the single lap pace cars and then those cars that are better in the race, better on high fuel, and maybe even better on the long ones. So yeah, it is definitely a track where I think it definitely in terms of GT cars, the field is usually very close. It's quite hard to overtake here, but it is possible. So I expect we're going to have a good race. It would be so much better if this track just had gravel traps, though, wouldn't it?
It would certainly punish the drivers a lot more. But saying that, there's still plenty of opportunities for them to get it wrong today. Particularly with it being the last round of the series, drivers are really going to be pushing now to find those final points and secure the titles or their final positions. So you never know, we might see some big crashes.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy track to drive. I have a race on this track just after this, so I'm commentating it, and then I have like a 10-minute break, and then I'm straight into an hour-long race. And I was doing some practice this morning in my Mercedes, and I have to take so much downforce off the thing because it's so bad. Balance performance is so bad around here, and I just cannot get senior right. It's such a scary corner, just in every car, because you kind of want to ride that inside curb, but if maybe you're on slightly colder tires or your car's not quite balanced right, if you hit that inside curb where the rut is, it can just spin you out. And although there's a massive runoff area, with the amount of speed you're carrying through that corner, often around 220 kilometers an hour. For most of the cars, you're not going to get slowed down in time before you hit that wall. Yeah,
no, you're 100% right. It is a track that is quite deceptive and is very technical in nature, I find. Like you say, a lot of these drivers are really going to have to be making sure they're hitting their brake markers, hitting the apexes, and just getting on the power nice and gentle as they come out. It could be crucial in some areas of the track and could be the difference between winning or losing today.
Yeah, talk about apexes. I mean, in Sector 3, you've got 3 corners in a row, and there's 6 apexes there. So you're looking at three double apex corners coming up to that. Obviously, the final little hairpin for the straight. So that little section is all about getting your flow right. You're putting your car in the right place, getting your braking marks perfect for that double apex, and the bendy straight, as I like to refer to it, getting that runoff on there, obviously out of Bendor, is so crucial to your overall lap time, because really you could lose 3 or 4 tenths, even though the straight is tiny. It's a really small straight, but if you just if you don't quite compromise your entry enough to make your exit good out of that double apex, you lose so much time just there.
No, you're exactly right, and I think a lot of these cars, the likes of the Ferrari and the Porsche, are really going to maybe benefit from that final sector, whereas your more grunty Mercedes and Bentley are going to really benefit from that middle sector, which is essentially a straight line. So it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers respond to each other, not only in terms of strategy, but in terms of the cars that they're battling around as well. And it could be really interesting to see how it plays out.
And I always like to refer to some of the cars as malleable. It's sort of one of my trademarks, I guess. With the Aston Martin and the Ferrari especially. I was saying in qualifying how they're 2 cars that you can build to your strengths, especially the Aston. Right? If you take off all that downforce, it's one of the best cars in a straight line. But if you put more downforce on it, suddenly it becomes one of the best cars in the other sectors. And that's exactly what we've seen so far in qualifying. We had the team on pole, the 55 Aston Martin, was half a second down in Sector 2. So they're losing so much time on that straight because of the amount of downforce they put on the car. And then you compare that to one of the other Aston Martins, who back in the field were 3 or 4 tenths up on that car in that sector. So those kind of cars, I think if you can properly build them to your strengths, maybe going to outperform those cars like the Porsches and the Audis, and maybe even some of the Bentleys, which we've seen go quite well around here, just because you can tailor it to your strengths rather than tailoring yourself to the car. But we are about to start the formation lap. Quick rundown of the top 10. We've got the 55, one of the championship contenders in the Pro Series. I believe they need to win, and then the 99 car in 4th place needs to come 6th. So keep an eye on those two cars. We've got obviously the 56 Porsche right behind them. Another car that I think mathematically can reach the top 3 in Pro Series, but it can't quite win. Coach Dave Academy 888, obviously one of our sponsors, running their car there in 3rd place. A nice performance from them in a car that tends to go well around here if you set it up nicely, and I think everyone knows they're pretty good at setups, so that's why they're right up at the front. 2 more Porsches, 99 championship leaders in 4th place, and Chris Herkis and Mirio Bramy, the sort of the stars of the show of that car. The 911 Porsche, classic number of course, down in 5th place, and then a bit of a surprise for me. I was gassing up Nico a little bit before the start of the race. Said he was fast, but he was complaining to me before the start of qualifying about how fast those Porsches were, and he was really happy about the fact he put his Audi in 6th, because I know he's fast, but normally he's sort of high 53s to low 54s fast, and he's managed to get to the mid 53s. So I think that 557 might be a bit of a surprise contender for this race. The second Aston Martin 85, down in 7th place, and then a car that we don't see very often, McLaren in 8th place, the 1110. Obviously Pro Series really locking out the top 14. I was going to say top 15, but that's not quite true. Then the 446 obviously of inside. Normally they race the NSX, obviously that's what we see them in the World Cup, the Single World Cup. But that's Master, they race that NSX, and they've been doing pretty well. Switching to the Aston Martin this time, which is quite a different car really. It's similar in terms of design, in terms of where the engine is, I suppose, but that's about it. You know, it's a car that the NSX is sort of it does one thing well in certain BOPs, and that's sort of straight lines, and it does everything else badly. But the Aston Martin, is what I'm saying, is a car you can build to whatever you want. So maybe a sign that their setup work is not quite on par with the 85 or the 55, because we know they have the pace. But if we look further down the field, we're looking at the other classes now. The 777 Bentley, one of the championship contenders in silver class. Currently, actually, I believe they're down in 6th or 7th in silver, but they can still win. But they were on pole in silver. We've got 2nd place in silver, the 95. The car currently 2nd place. That is needs 12 points compared to the 207, which is all the way down in 6th place in class. So the 207 really needs to improve. Otherwise, that 95 is going to steal the championship at the final hurdle. Then we go to Pro-Am, 89 on pole. A car again competing for the title. They're currently leading the championship with a first, and a second in the first 3 rounds. 36 just behind them, and the McLaren, I don't believe, is in contention for the title, but they're still capable of a good final performance here. The 111 Audi making it in 3rd in class. And remember, although they're on the same field as the Pro Series and obviously the Pro-Am if you're silver, they're racing each other more so than the rest of the field. And today we have, in terms of the how this race will change, in terms of the dynamics of the weather, I think it's a good way to put it. This is a 2x time race. So although it's a 3-hour race, the time will advance in game by 9 hours. So the end of the race, 6 hours. So I can't do maths. 6 hours. So the race will end in the dark. The race will end at night time, when the track temperature drops significantly. I think we're probably going to look at down into sort of towards a 15, maybe a little bit higher, depending on exactly when the sunset is. But we're about to start the race. We're entering the start straight now. Let's see when the Aston Martin goes. It's going to be important, I think, for that car to get a bit of a gap coming up to the straight, because we know they're running a lot of downforce and they're slow on that straight. They need to have a good first sector, and we are green for the final round of the SimGrid Endurance Cup. Diving down to turn 1. Porsche's actually got ahead, so the 55 has fallen behind. I'm not quite sure where they are. There we go. Still in 2nd place, but the 56 Porsche takes over the lead, and now the I believe that's the Ferrari, isn't it? Overtaking. No, it's not. It's the 99 has already got ahead of the 55. What a start for the 99 car. The CDA Ferrari falling back a bit, as I think even Nico's got past them, but they've got a drive through. The 6 car's got a drive through already, the 507 rather. But that the Coach Dave Academy Ferrari is falling back. I believe they had a bit of contact in turn 1. fallen back to 6th place now. We've got Porsche 1-2-4 as the lone Aston Martin sort of locks in. But we know they're not great in the straight. We know the Porsche has a nice bit of BOP for this straight. So maybe there's going to be another overtake here as that green and silver Porsche is very close behind.
Yeah, definitely. It's been amazing to see Martinez unfortunately not got the start that he would have wished in the opening sector of the race there. And with a 3-hour stint ahead of him now for the team, it's going to be very interesting to see as we see Gregor Schill in the 888 Ferrari having a little look up the inside there of Hillebrand. Looks like his drive-through has been cleared as well, so it must have just been an issue. As we see a big slide from Ibrahimi, and even bigger slide from Martinez as they run side by side now through this right-hander, top end of the circuit. Very tricky set to get right, and Ibrahimi's going to be looking now to try and get back up on the inside. And as you see, look, the drivers are going to have to be looking forward and backwards as they approach this final sector.
We know that the Porsche is great in that single lap performance, but time and time again, that car and the Audi, I think, are just known as being terrifying to drive because those things love to slide. And although I think Ibrahimi is one of the guys that you sort of expect will manage to handle it, all it takes is one moment where the car just steps out on you too much through senior, and you overcorrect it, and you just get projected into the outside wall, and that's their championship fight done. So they need to just make sure that car does not spin out, because that will be their race over. And I think the 55 is kind of praying for it right now, because it does sort of look like the 99 is faster as a car right now. The 55 obviously was set up with a lot of downforce, as we were speaking about, so we know it's great on single lap performance, but I think they might have gone too far in terms of that and really compromised themselves for the race. I think when this field spreads out a bit, it's going to be fine for them, and maybe if they can put a bit of gap on the guys behind, they're going to be okay. But as soon as they get that car that's in the draft and that slipstream right behind them, there's not much they can do to defend against it. Even though it's a Porsche, those cars are pretty good balance of performance in terms of the straight line speed around here.
Yeah,
it's only really
exactly
that
right.
507 Audi right that's going to struggle.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as we ride out on board now with Jarno Kausch, Martinez is going to be a sitting duck, and he's just going to have to be patient. You touch on rightly that a lot of these guys are fighting for their titles at the end of the season, so they have to be patient. They have to try and pick off the battles and the fights as and when they come up. And we see Hillebrand now is slowly closing again. I was chatting to him before the race, and he was saying the BOP on that Audi was quite painful. So another driver who I think is going to have to be patient. And as we get a replay now, as we ride on board, it looks like we're right on board with the Porsche there. As we see coming into the end of the first sector here. We've got a wee move coming up inside, it looks like. Not quite. Very close indeed, and you can see just how close these guys are, already bumper to bumper, and one mistake at this level of racing can easily cause an incident. And we
talking about mistakes, he's just been punted, turned around, hit about 5 times, and there's a Bentley around as well. I think that was one of the silver cars going around there, that Bentley, one of the championship protagonists. So maybe a bit of change. Yeah, I think the 777 was involved, right? It was the car that got spun around as well, trying to avoid the incident. So they've dropped all the way back. One of the cars competing, requiring a miracle, but competing for the title just about, spun around, I think, from pole. I've already forgotten where they qualified, but I think it was pole. And now being taken around because of that incident. Although I'm not a steward, I think we could see a penalty for the red Aston Martin there, spinning that Porsche around.
Yeah, definitely. It looked like he was just getting a bit too eager there. You know, like we say, it's the early stage of the race, not even 6 minutes elapsed yet, and a lot of the teams maybe trying to make up advantages because they know they don't have the endurance pace on the other cars around them. But you know, at the sim grade, we've got such a high quality driver that unfortunately mistakes like that and dives like that aren't going to fly. And like you say, it's going to be interesting to see what the stewards make of that. And
you can only feel bad for the 777 teams. The 777 Bentley rather. They did put it on pole. I was saying that they were competing. They need, I think, something like a 36-point swing to the leaders, but it's 50 points for a win. So technically, they're fighting for the championship. And now to go from pole to being spun out from an issue that's not your fault, just sucks so much. But it is a 3-hour race. If it was a sprint race, this kind of race over. But 3-hour race, other teams can have issues. You know you're fast. You can make your way through, and especially in a Bentley, it's a car that's good in a straight line. So it's a car that can overtake pretty well around here. So if you catch up to one of the smaller cars with the less power because of the less weight, as is the standard balance of performance around here, I think that team can still make a bit of progress. It really depends if they have damage, right? We can see, if you look to the right side of your screen, you have the little track map. You can see they're running third last overall right now, a little bit of ways off the field, but we know for a fact that they were a second or so ahead of a lot of these guys in qualifying, so they should sort of maintain that pace through the race and should be able to make some progress.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you say, as the race goes on, we're going to see drivers maybe starting to lapse from fatigue, and that's going to give the 777 just a bit of time to get through the field and maximise that pace where they can. Of course, the longer they can be in clean air, the better it's going to benefit them. Despite the massive tow here, if you're carrying damage, you don't want to be getting stuck tooth to nail with other people, as we see on the back now with the 888 Ferrari with Gregor Schille's got. It's looking like the number, is that the 556 Audi behind him, right on his tail, and you can already see the drivers are starting to break off into the little pairings and battle groups here. The number 56 though, look, he's nearly 2 seconds ahead at the front of the field.
And the 95 Bentley right here, car currently third in class. They are competing for the title. I believe they're in second place, leading by 12 on the 207. And as things stand, obviously the 207 second in class, up there in 16th place. But they were leading class at one point, and they actually got spun out in that incident.
And it just shows, doesn't it?
They got hit by their teammates. That's tough. They got hit by their teammates and spun out from leading the class. So that is unfortunate for the 95 team. But as we said, they're leading by it was 12 points. So as things stand, I believe third place is enough if the 207 wins. But I can't do that. No, actually no. I tell a lie. They need to finish second if the 207 wins. But if the 180 obviously wins the class, then the 95 will take the championship. So it's not the end of the world for them. I do think they can make their progress back up to the 207. We saw how fast they were, but right now it looks like they're going backwards. Maybe a bit of damage from the incident they did have, as the 36 Pro-Am McLaren flies past them. But it looks like the Bentley's going to go back up the inside into Busset. A nice little overtake there. This is something that I think we're going to see a lot around here, right? You get that overtake into senior, and then you get the sort of compromise, because usually you have to go up the inside. So your car is compromised through senior, the other car comes back on Busset, maybe gets you in Bendor if they don't quite get past you in that corner. But it's a track that really lends itself to, in Sector 3 especially, that battle, right? It's very hard to make an overtake because usually the other car will come back on you and overtake you again.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's a lovely sector. I love seeing the cars battle as they go through there, and it shows so much about the confidence of the drivers and how they can make it stick, if they can make it stick. Just quickly talking to drivers going backwards, we can see the number 26 Audi has been given a drive-through. Be interesting to see if that's maybe first track limits or from a prior incident he got involved in, but it's so easy to drop behind the group here when you get something like a drive-through at this circuit. And look, as you've probably seen throughout the course of the championship, these drive-throughs and penalties can make all the difference in your final standings.
Yeah, and in terms of track limits, this is one of the worst tracks for it, because it really encourages you to go off track, because it's essentially the same grip level, going off track versus being on, because there's no gravel, no grass. It's a dry track, so the curbs are your friend rather than your enemy. And especially somewhere like senior, right? The actual racing line cuts the corner and then goes off track on the exit. But if you go too far off, you hit those little bollards on the outside, or if you cut too much on the inside and you hit the inside bollard, bam, that's the track limits. You can easily get through there. So it's a track where very easily you can build up those track limit warnings. And I do think we're going to see some towards the top. I mean, we already saw the 99 car go off track in senior. I'm not quite sure if they got a Jeez, we're about to go 4 wide, I think, coming into senior. This is not where you want to be 4 wide. It looks like we're just about going to get through. Yeah, the Aston Martin retains position. The Audi as well sneaks through. And the Bentley just about avoids the track limits warning as it maintains position. So I don't actually think we saw any overtakes there. Oh no, the Bentley's gone too far. Just about holds on. Almost a big incident there in Busset, but the 101 Audi just about survives from the attack of the 95 Bentley. And I believe that was actually an overtake on the car, on the 95 by the Audi there. So the 95 is still going backwards. The car, we said, needs to go forwards, and it's not quite happening. So we saw the incident between the 777 and the 26. Obviously, the 777 was leading the class, and the 26 car spun them round, put them to the back essentially of the grid. I think they're still third last, maybe fourth last now. But a car that was running well. I think a car we'll see go back through the grid, but really rough start for them.
Yeah, definitely. And just looking back towards P26, there's some great battles going down this lower end of the field here. It's amazing to see the quality of drivers we got here at the sim grids, and with all these penalties being handed out, obviously the sim grid having full life stewarding, that really adds to the element of these competitions and makes sure that the drivers have to behave. And it's great to see the Lexus in the field here. Definitely not the car of choice that I'd be racing, but they're sticking in there. Nicholas is pushing hard, and it's going to be really interesting to see where they end up at the end of the race. Just look, we were chatting today about this big long straight, and What about the tyre wear? How are the drivers going to find that, do you expect, over the course of the race as it develops?
Well, I think that's where we're going to see some of the cars that, in terms of single lap performance, don't quite do as well. You know, the Lexus, the Bentley. I think to some extent we'll see some of the Aston Martins. It really depends how you have it set up. But you know, especially those front engine cars, I think really preserve their tyres quite well through here, because they don't quite carry as much speed through the corners, so it tends not to use the tyres up too much, and they get a little bit worse traction on the rear, so it tend to lose that rear traction later on. But those cars that are faster through the corners, I think especially your Porsches and your Audis, coming later in the stint, you'll see them sort of lose a bit of front end grip normally, as the car will start to understeer a little bit, and that's maybe where, if you're not quite as confident on a car and all the tyres, you can lose time. Really, the time in terms of lap time doesn't change much through a stint, especially because we're not going to get any double stinting here, I don't think. I think you'd have to be very bold. I mean, you don't have to do it, but yeah, there's not really any point to do it because the tyres will die too much. But I think we're going to see how do I describe it? Like the front engine cars will get better on the corners, and the cars that aren't front engine will get better everywhere else. So it should balance out. But I expect something like a Lexus, maybe even that McLaren. I know for a fact, racing one, that at least the driver that was in the McLaren that I raced around here was very good on long runs compared to me. So that might be a car we see go forwards. Obviously running 12th at the minute, 11th in class, given the 111 Audi. Maybe they'll make a bit of progress.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting just looking at the fastest laps of the race at the moment, who our quick hot lappers are. And like you say, it's a lot of these cars that lend themselves to their one lap pace, as we see July Sorp here trying to have a look up the inside of a Porsche. But your current top 5 fastest cars, 3 of those are a Porsche, one's an Audi and one's an Aston. So the Porsche still performing very well at this early stage of the race, like you say, as we'd expect. And really that number 56 he's still hanging in there on that fight to try and take this title to the end.
Yeah, exactly that, and they don't need necessarily now to get into the positions of the Aston Martin. You know, it's not crucially important that they're leading the race right now, but they need to make sure they're still in the fight come the end of the race. You know, if they fall 10-15 seconds off, I mean, it is possible to have that late race fight back. I remember back to the SimGrid World Cup by Thrustmaster, we had that I mean, it was because of damage, but we had what was his name? The Russian guy I think he was Russian anyway, who pulled something like a 50-second gap back on first place and nearly overtook him in the final stint. So it is certainly possible to bridge gaps, you know, at the end of a race. But it's really not something you want. You know, you want to stay in touch, and right now that's exactly what they're doing. Only 2.5 seconds off the lead. I do think that the Porsches will do worse on a long run than an Aston, just off what I've seen. But that is purely off, you know, drivers I've raced against, which are not quite on the scale of these guys in terms of pace. So maybe when you're pushing that car to its absolute limits, it might change in terms of complexion. But I'm sort of expecting that 55 will be better on the long run. And if they can stay in touch on the short run as well, then they can have a good race.
Yeah, definitely. And talking of staying in touch, we've got Jack Noller here in the McLaren car that we've not seen much of today. Pushing very hard. He's pushing down that number 95 Bentley, who obviously had the incident earlier on tangling with their teammates. And Jack is a driver who is very talented. He's got quite a strong CV when it comes to racing, and I can be certain that he's going to be pushing hard and hustling this number 95 up the field, and that could work to advantages if teams and drivers can work together to make the most of the drag and not fight too much. They can close up the gaps, as you can kind of see from this yellow Aston at the front of the pack here. I think that's the number 89. It's kind of dropped off slightly from Mund in the number 76. So if teams can work together, this could bring the field back together. But we've got so much action going on throughout the field. It's interesting to see who our biggest gainers and losers are.
And just had the 99 car has taken P2, I believe, off the 55 car. So the Porsche currently leading the championship now moves into second place. Yeah, they've still got the position. So the 55 couldn't quite get it back. So now Porsche leads Aston Martin, leads Porsche. Seeing I think a bit of a trend in the top 4. It's certainly safe to say in terms of the Porsches. But those Audis of the Butler Powell motorsports team, they are still keeping in touch, especially the 557 right now. Nico's running quite well. Bit of a gap back to the 556 sister car, but I think maybe that's a car that could enter that fight for the top 5, maybe even a podium come the end of the race. I'm not quite sure how fast his teammates are, but I know for a fact Nico is pretty fast around here.
Yeah, Nico, a very talented driver, obviously competing recently, as we see quickly, just an instant between cars 253 and 207. A 10-second penalty to number 207 for aggressive driving, so the stewards are on it straight away if there's any of this bad behaviour. But yeah, just to come back to, like you're saying about Hillebrand, a driver who's competed at SRO Esports and ultimately the pinnacle of ACC Esports, a driver who hopefully will be able to create some results for the team today. The Butler Pal, obviously a new team to the Sim Grid, and they've performed pretty well over the course of the season.
Yeah, they've really struggled in the World Cup, right? We've seen them have a lot of issues in those big endurance races, but in this shorter cup, they've certainly had some good performances. They're not quite in the title fight, but I think a big performance here to end the season would be a real confidence booster for them, especially given the fact we have the 24 Hours of Spa coming up in, 3 weeks' time on the 29th.
And as we see here, the 101 with Witzak is now on the back of Jack Noller. So Jack obviously hustling up the field, and he's going to have to go immediately try and break that slipstream. And look at them waving as they come down this straight here. All that's going to do is bring that Bentley into contention as well. And it's amazing to see as they try and break the slipstream just how powerful it can be. He's right on the back of Jack. A little bit of contact there, it looked like, actually. That McLaren bouncing around quite a bit. And they're going to be going side by side through here now. It's the fastest part of the circuit. See if Jack can hold him on the inside, or if he's going to have to let the move go. But like you say, the cutback always an option. And that's now brought in Wenlock with the Bentley. He's going to have a look. He does not. But yeah, look, like we were saying, this sector here, if you get it wrong, you can really compromise yourself for the remainder of the lap.
Yeah, the 101 got a slightly better run through Bousset. If he can get to the inside of the McLaren, no, not quite. And the Bentley actually sticks his nose in. A perfect bit of opportunism from the 95 car. He should be able to get the run out of the corner as well. No, not quite. Again, he could stick his nose in coming into the penultimate turn, but no, it looks like he's going to stick position for now. But right there, we just saw just sort of the complexion of the cars we have, right? So, the Audi was getting that massive toe from the McLaren, pulled the way back up to it, and as soon as he went too wide with the McLaren, it just stalled out, lost all that forward momentum, because obviously the car doesn't quite have that engine performance that the McLaren has. Lost all of it, and then because they were compromised in the corners, they're coming into Senior and even in Bousset to some extent, the Bentley was able to pull, I think, nearly a second on them both, just in those few corners, get all the way back up to them and nearly make the overtake work. So yeah, I think that's going to be the sort of the main fight we see through this whole race in those few corners. The Audi having to go defensive, the 95 tries to go deep, just about keeps his car in position. Is he going to make it work? No, the 101 keeps his nose on the inside, can cut back and just about push the Bentley out wide, and now get a better run onto the straight. But we know how good that Bentley is on a straight, and there's another one lurking in the depths behind this little battle. So the 101 here, I think, is going to lose a position, if not two, if they go side by side here, because the second Bentley lurking behind the 777 car might try and make a move, and we know how fast that car is overall because they put it on pole. So we know they can make it, and we see how fast that thing is in a straight. The Aston Martin, the Audi rather, just gets gobbled up, and you really don't want to be on the inside here. If you're about half a car length behind on the inside, you lose so much time through this corner. If the car can stick around the outside, perfect from the 95 car. Can he make it work? Yes, he can. And now the second Bentley, the 777, sticks his nose in. Can he make the move work on the more nimble Audi? No, not quite for now. There's another opportunity coming into Bendor, but the gap is too big, I think. The 101 is only going to lose one spot for now.
Yeah, it's. I would not like to be Philip at the moment. His mirrors are going to be absolutely full, and Alex Leaf there, the other 777 Bentley, like you're saying, mathematically still a chance to win in the silver class. Whether you can do that today, as we see, there's an incident in the background there. It looks like a Lexus and a McLaren having a collection there. Didn't quite catch who that was. I think it was Felix and Spraninsky. But oh my goodness, it's so crazy to see all these drivers making little mistakes and how big an impact it can have. Some of these could be race ending, and as we're back on board now with Philip, he's got the next Bentley behind him, a Bentley ahead of him, so he'll have a nice punch of air to get some slipstream with. And it's the one cool thing I find about ACC, look, and I'm sure you'll maybe agree on this, is just how much of a difference sitting behind some of these cars can have on the drag. You know, you really feel the difference between sitting behind a Bentley versus sitting behind something like a Ferrari.
Yeah, I was doing I did a race run here for practice basically yesterday, and I had this McLaren behind me. In qualifying was 3/10 faster than him, easily beat him there. But obviously the Mercedes doesn't have the greatest BOP here. It was not great in a straight, and literally the entire race, McLaren was super slippery. So it'd pull up on me on the Mistral, get to my inside, and then I'd just about get him back to Senior. Then he'd dive through Bousset, get past me again, then I'd pass him in Vendor. it's such a great track for keeping cars close, because you have that long straight where, as you said, the slipstream really helps, and also that whole sector 3 just lends itself to fighting. And I know I have already said I don't particularly like this track in terms of driving it, but in terms of watching a race in GT especially, I mean in F1 we know it's but F1 in general at the minute it's a bit so it's it's not unique, but in terms of GT racing, when you have a car, I mean this track is where they design the balance of performance for these cars. So we know for a fact that, especially, I think a bit more so in real life than ACC, the cars are very close around here, and it always lends itself to this tight, sort of side-by-side racing that we're seeing right now. And although it is very hard to make an overtake stick, because there's no big braking zone at the end of the straight, if you can, it feels damn good.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It can be so rewarding around here, and I think regardless of your skill ability, everybody can feel that. And we're seeing today, some of the drivers are being able to kind of stick the nose in, maybe push the boundaries that they wouldn't normally do because it is the final round of the season. And sometimes you're a hero, as we've seen, and sometimes it goes to zero, like we've seen. So again, it's a circuit that is a tale of two halves, and I think, like you said, the ability to have drivers go side by side is something which is really pleasure to watch. And although there's a few penalties starting to creep in, I love the fact that the drivers are pushing the limits.
Yeah, talking of a place you do not want to go side by side is the Werrell chicane right there, the turn 1 and 2, because the sort of line you have to take if you get stuck on the outside requires you to cut back in, and if you cut back in like an inch too much, suddenly you're getting turned around someone's nose. So you have to be so careful if you make an overtake sort of in that position. But you can sort of set someone up. If you get to their inside and then concede coming into the corner, you compromise obviously their chicane. And you can get that run towards turn 3, and then turn 3 becomes the overtaking opportunity. So it's a track where I think it requires setup work in terms of overtaking. Right, you don't just get behind them on a straight and pull past unless you're in a Bentley with no rear wing. But it's a track where you sort of have to know, right, I need to compromise their line in this corner so I can overtake them in the next one. And that's where you see some of these drivers, especially in a longer race, will maybe sit behind a guy that they're faster than. Let's say you pull up someone 2-3 tenths a lap, and you get behind them, and you're faster. But in an endurance race, you can't just go for the first overtaking opportunity you get. You don't just dive bomb on the inside, because one bit of contact and your race is done. One bit of contact and you get a drive through, and you fall back. And especially when you have no safety cars, like we have an ACC, get a drive through, you're going to fall very far behind. So you really need to sort of wait. You need to be patient with your overtakes, realize where you're faster, and then you use that by compromising. Let's say you're faster in Busset. I think it's an example. If you can get to the sort of the outside or the inside in coming towards senior, even if you don't take them side by side through there, if you compromise their line through senior, you can then get their run for Busset, get your car on the inside, and bam, there's your overtake. And as I said, it's the same in Sector 1. So it's a track where it's not easy to overtake. It requires skill. But if you talk about a lobby with skill in it, I think this is pretty much as good as you get.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously the Coach Dave Academy being one of the partners here, for one of the sponsors for this race, it's great to see the amount of setup work that they provide him for a lot of these endurance races that come into benefit. As we see Michael Montier going up the inside of Whitlock, makes a move nice and easy, no messing about there. Whitlock's going to have a little look to try and come back, but I don't think he's going to make it stick. And as easy as you like, and hopefully you'll be able to get that clear by the straight. But yeah, just like you say, if you get the right setup with the right car and the right driver, it can really be instrumental around here in terms of changing the shape of the race and being able to calculate where you can make the overtakes. And I think a lot of these teams, obviously more professional outfits, I suppose is the best way to put it, spending more time working on setups, where we got some more teams that are maybe inexperienced. And I think despite that variation in ability, we are seeing some great racing today across all three classes.
Yeah, and one thing you also need to do is choose your own battles. Right? You need to work out which cars should I fight, which cars should I let past, which cars should I, if they overtake me, try and get it back. And the 76 and 89 there, we saw these 76 get past. They're not racing for position, they're not racing for class. They need to remember that. Obviously, pro versus pro-am. So it doesn't really change anything in terms of their overall position, because your points aren't affected by cars not in your class. As we see a Bentley go very, very wide there. I think it was a 95. But that was exactly a great example of being smart in an endurance race, I think, because you let the guy pass as a pro. If you're the pro, you just say, go on then, have the position, and let them move on and just race your own race. Because the more you fight someone, the more time you can lose. We saw with the 95 and the 101. They started fighting, and the 777 gained about a second in 3 corners. So you just need to be smart with your overtakes. Make sure you don't lose time doing it. Be smart with being overtaken, and be smart with choosing, who you fight. So saying that was a great example, but that 95 penalty we saw almost had a wobble. It's such an easy track to make mistakes at, right? I know for a fact I've driven it like 6-7 hours this week, which is, given the fact that I don't really enjoy the track, a little bit depressing. But it's a track where I find it so hard to just get a perfect lap in, because there are so many corners that are just weird. I think it's the best way to describe it. If you get turn 1 wrong, you lose about 3/10 in turn 2. If you get turn 3 wrong, you lose half a second in turn 4. You get turn 6 wrong, you lose half a second on the Michelin straight. You get senior slightly wrong and you're in a wall. It's such an easy track to lose a lap, to lose half a second or a second here or there. And I think those teams that do the best are going to be the teams that avoid that. And we saw the 99 nearly lost it in senior. If they do that again, if they do it a few more times, one time they're not going to catch that slide and they're going to get projected into the outside wall. Or one time they're going to spin out and someone behind them is going to come and collect them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is where it kind of speaks to that nature of it being a car park. There's not a lot of variation, I suppose. It's not something like Spa or Monza where you've got these characteristics like the Lesmos or Rouge that kind of reward the driver for being able to be consistent. With the flat nature of the circuit and with the lack of consequence, it can be quite. A lot of drivers find it quite boring, I think, is the word that a lot of them will often use. And hopefully that won't be reflected in today's race, and I don't think it has so far. But like you say, if you get one corner wrong, it can compromise you for the next few corners. And I guess that way it keeps the drivers on their toes. I don't think we're going to see any rain today that would even affect the line slightly. But it's a circuit that is loved and hated, I think, by the overall community.
I think the best way to describe it, it's like the opposite of somewhere like Monaco, right? In an F1 car at Monaco, probably one of the best tracks to drive, right? In terms of enjoyment, just getting in a car and driving around that track is something else. Same with, let me think of another example. Something like Bathurst. The race, actually, Bathurst is really great for overtaking, so I'll take that back. Something like Nordschleife, that's a great example. Nordschleife is incredible to drive on, but I mean the overtaking and in terms of where you can overtake is very limited. There's like 2 or 3 straights where you do it. And sometimes the races at somewhere like Monaco is not quite as great as the driving is. And this track's like the other way around. The race is normally really good because everyone is so close. You have so many opportunities where you can get side by side and fight your way through 3 or 4 corners with someone. And in terms of driving, maybe it's not as good because it sort of encourages you to make mistakes because there's sort of a lack of consequence because you just go off track and you lose a second. Oh well. There's very few times in this lap where a mistake could end your race. I think senior is probably the only big example of that. So it's a track that is sort of saying to you, would you like to come off track here? Would you like to go off track there? But you do it wrong once and you lose so much time. So I actually think that's one of the, although in terms of the way the track looks, some people don't like it, and obviously the lack of punishment on the driver, but in terms of encouraging people to make those mistakes, it really rewards the guys that can stay focused, can stay consistent on their laps, and that's what you'll see from those top teams. The guy that can pump out 155.2s, for example, every lap, and just stay within a tenth of that every lap, is going to do better than the guy that does 155 flats and strays to the 155.5s when he makes those mistakes. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think I would say from the 99 and the 557 are 2 good examples right now. Over the single lap performance, maybe not quite as good as something like the 55 and the 56, but they're staying in touch because they just don't make mistakes.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right with that. It's about being able to be consistent and keep performing at that top level. And I think Nicholas Hilbrand, as we see here, he has not lost touch of the car ahead of him, the 911 Porsche. And although the move isn't immediately on this lap, we can be 100% certain that over the next few laps, we may in fact see a little look from the inside. As you can see there, the toe working quite nicely for him, pulling him along. Don't think he's going to have a look. Oh yes, he's going to have a look to the inside. He's going to commit to the inside as well, force that Porsche wide. Porsche going to try and get the cut back, and it looks like actually the Porsche has dropped right back out of that. So like you say, maybe a bit of calculated maneuvers there, letting him go ahead, see if he can catch some people up. But a good move there from Nicholas Hilbrand. He'll be very happy as they move up into P4. Kausch just got a little bit of a poor run there, I think, as they came onto the straight, and it ultimately had that consequence. not much you can obviously do here at a circuit like Paul Ricard, where there is such a long straight and so little to defend from. As we look through the field now, we're seeing Ryan Meehan, side max, a very talented driver, that number 96 Aston Martin, catching up onto the back of Singh, it looks like, with the in the number 446 there. It's coming into the final sector again. Quite a few corners that can reward you with some brave overtakes, but it's important to make sure you get a nice clean run as you come out onto the main straight, preparing to move for that turn 1 sector. And due to the camber nature of turns 1 and 2, it's unfortunately not an easy overtaking opportunity. If you do get it wrong, you can actually be punished quite heavily, and I think depending on how the drivers have the car set up today, we may see a few drivers pushing the limits too hard and ultimately getting bit back by the track as a consequence.
And I don't mean to make predictions, although I do, because I enjoy doing it. Is the 506 just disconnect? Where's the 506 gone? It's disconnect. I've been told the 506 has had a disconnect. A team that was, I think they were in P6 at the time, right? They were running just behind the 911. They've disconnected one of the Butler Powell teams, once again having an issue. It's not really their fault. There's such a... I think every race I've commentated, one of the cars has had like connection issues or been spun out by someone else now. Or I think the 557 had some setup issue, like a bug in the Bathurst race. That's so unfortunate. Down now, I think, in P30 because of the disconnect. Last place of the cars still running. Obviously, we had a few cars, I think DNF through instance, and that's a bit loose from Nico right there. The rear end tried to step out on that Audi, just about held on, but now the 911 coming to its own in terms of lap time. I think maybe this Audi's being a bit punishing on the tyres in terms of how maybe Nico's pushing it right to its limits, and the Porsches are maybe holding on. And that's why we're seeing something like the 911 push forward, and I think the 557 now is starting to just drop off. They did I think overtake recently. They got past the 911, but it looks like now the 911's coming back. Yeah,
I think it's we're going to see some, as much as the stint time is going to dictate how the drivers perform today, we may see some variable strategies here. Some of the teams that maybe had a worse start, got caught up in some incidents and scrubbed the tyres, may just have to start pushing early in order to try and maximise what little grip they've got left. Whereas conversely, you may have some teams that are, looking to nurse those tyres as long as they can. And hopefully, this isn't going to be too race ending for those teams that are trying to push hard, and really could be a deciding factor as we get towards the end of the race, depending on how some of these tyres and some of these cars work together.
And I think right now with this 911 and the 557 right here, we're seeing the power of the toe on that Mistral straight, right? Because we saw Nico caught up with the 911 and got past, right? And sometimes it can be a bit deceptive. Am I faster because I'm on the straight and getting the toe, or am I faster because I'm faster? And right now I think we're sort of seeing that the 557s may be faster overall, but this toe that the Porsche is getting down, A, this straight, and B, the start-finish straight, is pulling it back in, and Nico's just completely unable to break that because the cars are so similar. Sector 3 especially, these cars are so similar in terms of performance that Nico can't really pull ahead. He's having to defend by sticking to the right side of the track here. And it looks like maybe the Porsche is going to get to the outside. No, he pulls out a little bit early. Is he quite going to get... No, he's not quite going to get there. Nico closes the door, shuts the Porsche back behind, and I think maybe this is an example of these two guys just sort of racing together, right? I think if the Porsche had stayed in the tow there, it could have easily got alongside. Talking of alongside, the 96 Aston Martin and the 446 getting a bit feisty into senior. They were alongside, but the 446 better on the brakes. Got it back ahead of the 96 car and keeps the position for now, but that's getting a very tight race for 7th place. But yeah, as I was saying, with those cars, we're just seeing that you sort of get stuck together, right? One car overtakes, and then the other car has the tow and just stays with them and maybe overtakes again. But the 557 and the 911 sort of working together, keeping in touch with the leaders right now. There's about an 8 to 9 second gap, I think, but sort of just about keeping intact.
Yeah, exactly. As we see Owen Wenlock there running wide. It looked like we were free wide at one point as we see the McLaren going up around outside of Felix. He's got Spruniski on his inside, and almost a bit of contact there. So close together, these drivers, and now Owen's going to have another look up the inside. We know he's an opportunistic driver. If the opportunity comes, he brakes late. He forces the Audi to go wide as well, and he gets the move down, which is now going to put that Audi into pressure from which tech it looks like. And a great move there from Owen Wenlock. We know a driver who is very talented behind that Bentley, and showing that he can make the car work despite its heavy nature. Just quickly coming back to that toe on the main straight, it almost feels like a bit of a DRS to me, is kind of the impression that I get at this circuit. Like, some of these cars that are normally so out of touch pace-wise are able to really just come into range and make a move that normally they wouldn't have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, I think per lap, I think it's something like 7 to 8 tenths you gain by sort of sitting right on the bumper of someone. So if you're very close in terms of overall pace, like we see, you know, with the 911 and the 557, it's just so hard to break that toe, because, you know, even if you're half a second ahead coming onto the mid-style straight, they just pull back up to you and either go too wide or just sit on your bumper again. Talking of sitting on your bumper, the 261 is looking all over the back of this 95 Bentley, and the 95 is a car that needs to make forward progress. They need to catch up with the 207 car, because they're currently, I believe, is it 12 points? No, 17 points behind. No, it is 12 points. It's not a lie. 12 points behind in the championship. So they need to finish first, essentially, the 95, to win the silver championship. They need to finish first, have a chance. And right now they're behind the sort of the main protagonists in that fight, the 207, who currently leads the championship.
Yeah, exactly. With the 207 does look like he's got a penalty. And we're just hearing here, yeah, he's within that 10-second range. So at the moment now, what we've got is a battle here where the number 207 needs to put the foot down and try and break that 10-second gap. Otherwise, like you say, the championship fight is almost all over. Apologies there. And Owen really is going to be pushing hard. We're going to see him fighting through the field and see if he can close that gap longer. I mean, look, if you're in the position of the 207 here, you've got a 10-second weight hanging over your head. How are you going to manage that over the course of the race?
Well, I think they know that the 95 has to win the race, right? The 207 is second in class, so they're only 3 seconds off, obviously 13 with the penalty, but the 180 leading the race really messes with it, I think, because the 95 has to catch the 207, pass the 207, and then get the 180 to win, because the gap is 12 points, right? So it would have to be 95 first, 207 third. So even if the it just doesn't, yeah. So right now, the 95 is what? It's about 14 seconds off where they need to be, but I mean, we've only had 40 minutes. We've not even had 40 minutes of the race, so 3-hour race, anything could happen. You know, 207 has a spin out, suddenly the 95 doesn't need to win anymore. Anything could change right now, but yeah, I think the 207 just has to, I think they have to know that they need to finish top 2 as they go. Anywhere in the top 2 is fine for them, and right now sort of teetering on the edge of that. But obviously, knowing that the 95 isn't leading the race, they can be a little bit safer with what they do. So yeah, I don't think they need to get aggressive. I don't think they need to push quite to 100% right now. I think some of these teams that know they're sort of maybe safe in the championship will, you know, find a car to get a slipstream off and just sort of sit there for a bit, maybe save a bit of fuel for a better pit stop, and just take their time. Because especially something like the 207, I think 99 is another good example of that. Has a quite good lead in Pro Series. And to some extent, the 89 Aston Martin in Pro-Am, which is currently running 3rd and only needs, I think, 6th to win the championship, or 5th. So those cars can sort of take the time, be a bit patient, and don't necessarily need to push right to the front of class straight away.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about at the front, we number 56 is now really pulled out a 3-second gap over Ibrahimi in the number 99 Porsche, and it really looks like the 56 is trying to check out of this race, as we see Gilberto here just having a little look at the inside of that 446, who is right on the bump of Ryan Mean, number 96. And here is a great example of how if the teams and drivers work together, they can really close the gap. But it looks like Gilberto is really pushing hard. He's hustling Sai here as they come up towards the first straight, and hopefully we'll be able to stay on board as we come up the straight here and really see the effect of the drag coming into play. And we might even see them go free wide. Gilberto is right on the back of him here and just needs a nice clean run, trying to stick under that rear diffuser. And if he can do that, he'll be able to maximize this huge benefit of not having the drag. And to right on bond here, I love this camera, it's a great shot. You can see him closing in, and he's going to go left, is he going to go right? He's waiting till the very last second here. He ducks out to the left, gets clear of sight. He's not going to be close enough for Ryan Meenan, I don't think. I think Ryan's been able to get a nice enough run there, and they're going to be going too wide here as they come back up into this top right-hander.
And right there again, you see the fact that this 446 car is working better in a straight than this the 44 Porsche. And I think once you realise that, you just have to completely change how you approach that straight, right? Because we saw the 44, as soon as they got to the bumper, the 446, they sort of went for the move. And you almost have to treat it like sort of NASCAR style in a super speedway, where you might lift off a little bit on the straight just to time your run better, because you essentially want to be side by side in the corner there. You know you're better in the corners, this 44 car, you can see it from this onboard. So they need to maybe get to the bumper and then lift off a little bit sort of halfway down the straight, and then maybe when they hit 6th gear, get back fully on the throttle, get alongside for the corner, and get the overtake done there. And that's just what you need to do around here. You need to work out exactly when to make the move, exactly how to make the move. Otherwise, you're not going to get it done.
I think, yeah, you're exactly right. And I think if Gilberto can slot into this kind of sandwich here, he'll be able to negate the difference. As we see him have a look to the inside once again, he's going to try and commit into turn 1, just can't make it work. But yeah, if he can get himself into the sandwich and hook up onto the back of Ryan Mina, it's going to negate any sort of impact that the 446 has got on that straight line. But again, maybe the team's got a different strategy in mind and are really maybe trying to plan something else that we're not seeing here. But I think you're exactly right. Like, this is a circuit that demands the drivers are kind of smart, calculated, and have the long game. We're only, less than 50 minutes through this race, and there's been so much action so far.
Yeah, so now what you kind of need to do on this straight as the 44 cars, you maintain maybe a 2 to 3 tenths gap until you hit 6th gear. And then you hit 6th gear, and you go just flat out on the straight. You get that toe, and you get alongside. But if you just get alongside too early, I think that's exactly what it looks like he's trying to do here. Maintaining the gap a little bit better here. So he's basically going to get alongside later in the straight, right? So the fact that this Aston Martin has much better straight line speed is going to be negated by the sort of the toe. This might be the opportunity. He's going to go to the inside again, maybe a little bit too early. Can he keep the nose in there as he approaches the corner? Not quite. Just a little bit too early for the 44 car there. Can't quite keep it alongside coming into senior. And really needs to be at least about half a car alongside to even have a chance coming into that corner, because it's such a scary corner to go too wide that you're essentially trying to force the other guy to concede, right? If you get to the inside and you get far enough along, you're trying to force the outside guy to just break a little bit earlier and let you go. And if you get to the outside, you're trying to do it the other way around, where you're trying to break as late as possible and go, swoop around. But just right there, he just couldn't quite get as much of his car alongside as he needed coming to senior. Concedes it, slots back inside, maybe looking for a different overtaking opportunity. I think turn 1 might be a better example of a place they can overtake in that Porsche. Or maybe turn 3, if they can get alongside entering turn 1, compromise the line for the Audi, the 456, also the Aston Martin. If they can compromise their line through turns 1 and 2, then that race into turn 3 becomes super important.
That's exactly it. It's all about this, just being patient and finding your gap and trying to make it happen when you can. And I think we're going to see a lot of that today throughout the races. A lot of teams just hustling back and forth and ultimately compromising themselves in the final, the full length of the race, which is a bit of a shame. But I think we see, throughout the field now, the gaps are starting to settle down a wee bit, despite the rookie monsters here having their battle. And again, I'm just so impressed with that 56. They're pushing hard. The gap has came down slightly by about 4 attempts, as we see the number 15 has now been given a penalty for avoidable contact. So everybody's picking up penalties here, and that could really shake up the race as we approach the end of the first stints for a lot of these drivers.
I think this gap now might be good for the 444. The gap was a bit bigger entering the straight, which in effect means that you're going to get more momentum with the toe, and B, you're going to get alongside later. If they can pull far enough alongside, I'm not quite sure if they're going to make it. No, not quite. I think the toe from the 96 sort of saved the 446 a little bit there. The double toe not quite strong enough for the 44 car, but we're seeing the odd battle here or there. But yeah, as you were saying with the penalties, this race now is a battle of attrition, right? Avoiding drive-throughs, avoiding avoidable contact, hence why it's called avoidable contact. You do not want to get involved in it, and just if you can avoid those penalties, if the car in front of you gets a 5 or 10 second penalty, it means you don't need to overtake them to take the position, which makes your life a lot easier, because you can just sort of sit on their bumper and piss them off a little bit. Because if you can make someone aware, right? Let's say the 89 gets to the back of the 15, right, and just sits there. The 15 in their head knows we need to pull a gap on that car, so they will start to push, and they will start to push. And as long as you just sit on that bumper, every lap that they're going, oh, let's add a tenth here, let's push a little bit more in this corner, and they keep doing that, and eventually they find the limit, and you're still on the bumper, and they go over the limit and make a mistake. Bam, you've got a position, you don't need to do anything for them. So you can really use someone else's penalty to your advantage in terms of making progress in this race, but you have to avoid getting one, because if you get one, it's a complete other way around.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right with that, and I think we're seeing that here with a few of the different drivers. Owen now is a driver who we said throughout the course of this race has been pushing extremely hard, and maybe has picked up some warnings from his driving antics. Maybe he hasn't, we don't know. But if he can just sit on the back of the cars ahead of him now, he is well within, like we said, within striking range of this 207, and if he can keep himself clean whilst the others are making mistakes around him and picking up penalties, that's going to win him, more than an overtake would. And we can see as he's hustling this McLaren quite hard, if he gets that wrong, it's really going to compromise. And there's the 261 there, maybe a bit late on the brakes. And look, it's interesting to see how a lot of these drivers are really trying to just sit right behind the car in front, force them into mistake, and see if they can benefit before the first round of stops.
Yeah, we have a 65-minute stint length time on this, so in terms of overall fuel performance, every car can easily do a full stint. But what sitting behind a car allows you to do is preserve your tyres a little bit. Obviously the dirty air makes you slide a little bit more in the corners, but you can slow down a bit in the corners because you're gaining all that time on the straight. And also what you can do is you can lift off on the straight, save a bit of fuel. So when it comes to that pit stop, and let's say you've saved, 5 litres of fuel over a stint because of it, suddenly your pit stop's a second or two quicker, and you just get the position of the pits. We've got a battle now for 4th place. Once again, we were saying the 557 and the 911 couldn't break away from each other. I think on single lap performance right now, the 557 is a little bit faster, but once again, that toe's coming in. The Audi struggling on the straights a little bit. And you just see that gap to 3rd place is just falling and falling and falling. Just, I think about 10 minutes ago, it was an 8-second gap. Now it's a 12-second gap. So I think we're sort of seeing a 3-way fight to the lead, and then a sort of, another battle for 4th place. And really, there's a car that really gets punished by that. The 55 Aston Martin, a car that won the last 2 races, but that DNF in round 1 really has messed with their title hopes, because they need the 99 to finish below 6th, and they need to win the race. And if they're sort of getting that 3-way fight at the top, when the 99 is involved, you can't really finish 6th unless it has an incident. And based on how it looks, the only car around that you can have an incident with at the minute is the 55 car.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see. The 99 is starting to drop off in price. We see he's now obviously lost out to the number 55, as we see the 911 and 557 going side by side again, but the 911 backs out of it. Maybe lifts off actually just to try and play it smart. And yeah, you're exactly right. If the car that you need to finish 6th is the one that's right beside you on track, there's very little you can do. You can hope that the cars behind him are going to try and come back into play, and we've obviously still got well over 2 hours left in which that could happen. But it is really going to be a patience waiting game, and mentally can be quite draining as you're kind of watching the timetable as much as you're watching your own car on track. And that's where we could see that attrition fall and the mistakes start to happen.
Yeah, you can't even do sort of 2016 Lewis Hamilton style and slow the guy down, because you also need to win the race. So they need to catch the guy in front of them, and they also need to try and pull a gap somehow on the 99 and force them backwards at the same time. So it's sort of an impossible one for the 55 at the minute, because they need to go forwards and backwards at the same time. But at that point you just have to go, well, let's just do the best we can. If we finish first and it's not enough, that was as much as we could do. But if they, in the quest for fighting with the 99, have an incident with them maybe, as they defend a bit too hard, for example, they could go from finishing 2nd in the championship with 3 wins to finishing 4th or 5th with maybe a DNF or a big penalty if they do perform that incident. So I think right now the 55 just has to sort of go, let's forget about the championship and let's just do as well as we can this race.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We've been all over the world with some of these tracks today, this season, I should say, between Monza and Nurburgring, with Silverstone in between. It's a season that's seen so much action on such a variety of tracks, and as it comes to its finale, its peak, we can see that the drivers are, they're starting to show their fatigue, and the calculations are coming into play, and the teams are really just having to be patient and see what can happen. I think we've not seen too much drama at the stops previously, but do you think that's something we could see today? Look, do you think we could see some of the teams maybe missing their marks, not getting the driver change done just right, and compromising themselves?
Well, it's very easy to do in ACC, right? You have that little box that you have to put your car perfectly in, and if you don't do that, if you're slightly off, then it moves the car before it goes up. And that's just an easy way to lose a second here or there. So if you're sort of the 99 right now, you can afford to sit here, especially while you're coming through this traffic, as they're approaching some lap cars, I believe. There we go. Letting the first lap car, letting them by. We've got a couple more ahead. But when you come into the pits as the 99, you just make the pass right here. Get along to the inside of the 55. They can make the pass done. Yeah, they just about get ahead. They're compromised though for turn 2, and the 55 can fight back here if they can get the run out of the corner. Not quite. I don't think the momentum is quite there. Is the braking there? Maybe not. No, the 99 is going to hold on to the position here, but the 55 we know struggles on the straights. So now I think this might be the 99 up into second place, and it's going to stay in second place. And especially with the Lexus ahead, they're getting a bit of a tow coming onto the Mistral straight. Get a little bit of a worse exit, I think, compared to the 55, but that tow should help and should maintain their position for them. But yeah, back to what you were saying with the pit stops is, let's say now if the 55 stays within a half a second and they hit their marks in the pit stop, all they need is for the 99 to be a couple inches off, and they should get the position back.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. And the other factor that we're of course seeing now come into play is traffic management. You know, these blue flags are starting to appear on track. The back markers, those who've either been caught in incidents or just simply aren't able to match the pace of the leaders, are going to be kind of moving chicanes and roadblocks on the roads. And you saw there how the number 99 and 55 were able to utilise that traffic to their advantage, and Smear was able to get the move back into second place. And it does look like on track, actually, they've got a bit of a gap now until the next set of traffic, but as that midfield pack starts to approach the back end of the field, we could see some drama, some spins, some action, and some opportunistic overtakes.
Yeah, we already sort of saw that, I think, with the 55 and 99. The 55 sort of got picked behind the yellow Porsche that slowed down. You know, the 99 was further to the left, so was able to just maintain full momentum because they didn't have to lift off slightly, and that's, I think, what got them to the position. But yeah, I mean, I tend to see, I think over longer races especially, you get sort of traffic karma, as I like to call it, right? It sort of balances itself out. You know, you get screwed over this lap, the guy you're racing gets screwed over the next lap. It tends to happen like that. Especially, I mean, this track traffic's not really a big issue because you tend to be, I think especially now, they're catching people that they're 1 to 2 seconds faster a lap, right? So it's very easy for them to make overtakes. But when they start to catch sort of the midfield, if that happens, you know, that's when you start to get screwed over by someone that's only, talking of screwed over, that is an Audi getting spun out, I think, by the 95 Aston Martin. I think that was the 261 car going around. He kept it out of the wall just about. But Senior claiming another victim there. That car is falling far back in the grid now. I think losing 5 to 10 positions already, if not more. We see them in the background there getting going again. But I'm interested to see a replay there, whether that was just a side-by-side and a case of overtake gone wrong, or whether that was a case of someone making a mistake, because that could have big implications on the silver title fight, given that the 95 car is currently second place.
Yeah, exactly. It's so amazing to see just how a back marker can cause drama for you, and or even a guy that you're racing against. And it was a shame really to see that mistake. And with the nature of this circuit, you can just lose so many positions so quickly.
Yeah, and especially someone like Senior, because not only are you going to go wildly off track, if you spin around there, you know, you're probably going to stall, you know, because you're not accelerating, you're not on the clutch where you're frantically slamming the brake, and you usually bring the car to a complete stop, have to get it restarted, then you have to get it back around again, then you have to get back on track. So it's very easy to lose sort of 10-15 seconds there when you get spun out, and especially this early in the race, only an hour in, given how tight this field is, 10-15 seconds is 15th to about 25th.
Well, that's exactly it. You're a spot. As the number 207 has now been given a stop go with 20-second penalty, so even more drama for that team, who were trying to keep their 10-second penalty as their final slap on the wrist, and it looks like it's just been sent to the headmaster's office for that one. This could have huge implications here, look, for the rest of the race. And
we know that 95 car only needs a 12-point swing, so that is either finishing first and the 207 finishing third, or finishing second, and I think the 207 finishing fourth, I think, will be enough. So that stop-go penalty is going to put them all the way to the back of the grid. I mean, they do have 2 hours left, so there's a possibility that the 207 could fight back, but that will move the 95 car up into second place, put the 207 back out of championship contention until it fights its way back in. But there could be another change in this. The 95 car was the car that spun that Audi round. It was the car involved in that crash, so if the stewards see that as a 95 fault, it could be that we see the 2 championship leaders get a penalty, and suddenly the 777 and the 253 get brought into championship contention, because the 253 actually is in third place right now in the championship fight. I think they need something like a 18-point swing between them and the leaders, so obviously, and it's something like a 6-point between them and the 95. So if those 2 cars, the 207 and the 95, drop to the back of the grid, and the 253, I don't know, maybe catches the 95 and gets second place, that could be enough.
No, you're exactly right, and I think this is going to shape up to be quite the finale of the season that we expected. Nothing better than your championship contenders having to push the cars to the limit now to try and retain their hands on that trophy, and that's where we could really see things spice up. I'm just seeing now they are taking that stop-go penalty now on this lap, so that's going to bring them down through the field, and I wonder if the team are on the phone to Owen and letting him know the story of what's going on and seeing if Owen can push now. Obviously, look, if you're in Owen's position now, you know you've got this confidence, as we have a replay here of potentially what was the incident between the it looks like the 556 and the 44. Nico has a look to the inside, bit like on the brakes, and he makes contact there, so not a great move from Nico. We said a driver that has a lot of composure, and just coming in there a bit too hot on the brakes and did spin the number 44. Now, it's not how I'd pass the guy, but again, we could see that the stewards having a look at this as well. Look,
I think that's the other Balapal car, right? The 507 is Nico's car, so the 506 is the one that's back right at the back of the field because of that disconnect. So I think that was a case of them maybe getting a bit hot-headed from the issues they've already had, getting back in. I expect we're probably going to see a penalty for that, given the fact that they went for a gap that wasn't really where they might have actually DNF'd the 556. I think they've actually left the grid, decided to call it a day. It's unfortunate to see that. I like to finish races even if I'm laps down because of issues. I'm the kind of guy that likes to do it anyway. But I guess the 506 has called a day on it. Decided that it wasn't worth coming from, I think, 2 laps down. I think there were 2 hours left in the race. I mean, they could pull a lap back maybe if they're lucky. But yeah, they're disconnected, so it might not actually be their fault that they've disconnected. But I'm going to take a wild guess and say they might have left. But I mean, I could be wrong. I may be underestimating their character as drivers. Perfectly possible, but yeah, as saying, it's Nico's car. The 557 is actually fine because they're up in 4th. We're seeing another issue here. The 261. This is the incident we saw with the 95 that I was saying could get a penalty. I'm not quite sure how to interpret that. Kind of felt like a racing incident where they're just side by side into a corner that we know is terrifying. The 95 did sort of come over a little bit, but I think maybe the stewards might be a bit nice on them because it kind of felt like a racing incident to me.
Yeah, it's a part of the circuit where it's one of the few areas I feel that you can really make an overtake. As we go back to another replay here, and we're going to see the incident once again. You can see as we're up alongside, 95 is still on the inside. He is there, and I think he just drifts out a little bit of understeer, and they nearly keep that Audi in a straight line, but not quite just. Yeah, I think, look, I'd probably call that as a racing incident as well, but obviously we'll see what the stewards have to say about that.
Yeah, it kind of felt like the 95 held its line enough. I mean, they didn't cut the curb, and usually you cut the curb. And I think maybe the 261 was sort of expecting that and expecting the car to be a little bit further right than it was. So the 261 comes in, thinking the car's only going to be half on track, and then suddenly actually it's hugging the line, not the curb, and just gets spun out on the nose. So I think that's just a really unfortunate moment for the 261. It's a sort of a how do I say this? An unfortunate thing that happens at this track, right? Senior is the main overtaking opportunity because of the big straight, and it also happens to be the fastest corner on the track. And so that kind of combination, a corner that's fast, it's a little bit off camber as well, so it's very unstable. And that combination, adding in the best overtaking opportunity on the track, tends to lead to quite a few incidents.
Yeah, you're 100% right. By just getting on that inside curb, and the car can become quite unsettled. Likewise, if you go a bit too wide on exit as well. So you can't really fault Owen there for that. I don't think it was, an intentional move. And we have seen, both in the real world and in the virtual, we've seen plenty of incidents happen there. So yeah, it could be a huge impact on the race, but fingers crossed it's not. And again, talking about this battle between Ibrahimi and Martinez, you can see they're jostling positions again, as we see number 207 just being given a stop-go penalty for an unsafe rejoin, and obviously we've seen that happen before. So still plenty to happen with just 2 hours remaining, and this fight for P2 is shaping up to be a good one.
Yeah, talking of things happening, the 55 getting its position back, the two protagonists for the championship fight in Pro just go back and forth in terms of overtaking each other. Obviously we're reaching the end of the stint now. We've got 5 minutes left before they reach their stint limit, so these cars will be coming in next 2 laps. But it's been pretty awesome to see these two guys. That if we look at the sort of the finishes, right? The 99 is finished first, second, third, and then the 55 DNF'd in race 1 and then won the next 2 at a canter. So it's kind of cool to see these two teams of drivers, at least for the first hour, have basically stayed within a second for the whole thing. They've just been on each other's bumpers the whole time. And now maybe it finally looks like the 55 has got a bit of pace. on the 99 here. They pulled sort of just under a second here. But we said it was very DRS-like on this straight, and you get DRS within a second. So I think maybe we're going to see the 99 get back a few tenths on the straight here. There is enough slipstream this far back, sort of 4 or 5 car lengths back. There is enough of a slipstream to pull you back in, but it's only going to be about a tenth or two that you'll gain on the straight.
That's exactly it, and obviously you can rely on the driver beside you or around you from getting a bad run out onto the straight, but there's no guarantees that this will always happen. And as we see here, the number 85 is hunting down that 446 once again, and it looks like he's got a much better run. He's tucked into that slipstream right under the rear diffuser. Is he going to be able to get up alongside as they come up through signs at the top of the circuit? I don't think so, but it's really going to be shaping up here between all the battles throughout the field. As we see, the gap between Hilbrand and Schills also came down. The number 88, that gap came down by about 4 or 5 tenths over the past few laps, and the Ferrari is he's up there by himself. Not a car that we're seeing a lot of in the field today, and it'll be interesting to see how that car goes as they reach the end of the race. Obviously, we know they've got the Coach Dave Academy setups helping them out there. James and Greg are two very talented drivers, able to do some magical things with that car. But look, not been a very popular car of choice. We see contact there between the 85 and 446. July just chucks up the inside, gets through in a push-to-pass manoeuvre, and I know we see bumper rumping in GT racing, but I think that was maybe a bit too rough for my liking.
Yeah, I said we needed NASCAR-style moves on the straight. Now we're getting NASCAR-style moves in the corners as the 85 sneaks past with a bit of a bump and run on the 446. I'm curious what the stewards will think. I think the move was there. The opportunity was there for the 85 to go for it, and the 446 maybe wasn't expecting it. So I think once again you're probably looking at a racing incident there, because there sort of was no harm done. I mean, the overtake was made, but it may be a couple of seconds of damage for each car. But in terms of being spun out, didn't happen. In terms of a car being irreparably damaged, didn't happen. So I expect maybe they'll just look at that as another racing incident. But it's a little bit of a nervy moment for those two teams who are, again, another duo that have been pretty much fighting the whole of the first stint. We're seeing a bit of diversity in terms of strategy, right? We see the 99, 446, the 111, and the 888 coming in essentially a lap early. Right? There's enough time that they can put one more lap in this stint. They're deciding in terms of strategy that they want to come in a lap earlier, and that might put the 99 car rather back ahead of the 55, because it means that they don't have to fight, right? So all they need is about a second worth of difference between the two cars in the pits, and the 99 will get that second place back. Whether that'll happen or not, I'm not sure. But another gap we need to look at now, the 55 is catching back up with the 56, so the Aston Martin definitely seems to be going well on that long run. We saw sort of towards the last 20 minutes of the stint that it's pulled 3 or 4 seconds on Ogorodnikov in the 56 Porsche. So I think that's something we're going to have to look at over the whole race, is that maybe those Aston Martins are going to sort of come alive in the last 20 minutes, and the Porsches, maybe they're falling off. It might be the other way around. But in terms of implications for the overall race win, maybe that's something we're going to see later on.
Yeah, definitely, and as we talk of seeing implications, both P1 and P2 are into the pits now. Teams and the crews are going to be fighting hard against each other to try and get their other car out ahead of their opposition. So we see Jack Noller as well is right on the inside now of what that looks like is that Windlock with the 89 Aston, and does the move. Yeah, he makes the mistake nice and easy. That McLaren, a very well balanced car, particularly for these high speed sectors, and Jack is pedaling that car very well. The pit lane is now full of a hive of activity, and obviously we need to make sure that the drivers are aware of these cars as they exit the pit lane. There's not a very the pit exit system isn't very good here at Paul Ricard, I don't find. You kind of just launch straight back out onto the racing line. It's not like some of the other circuits like Spa and whatnot, where you've got a bit more time to breathe. And look, do you think it's maybe something some of these drivers aren't able to plan for, is if they're having traffic coming out the pit lane and how they manage that?
Well, I mean, usually you can see, right? You tend to, if you come up to the pit exit, you get that little thing on your screen that says there's a car alongside you. So you get like a second or two's warning that there's going to be a car there, and that's about it. So I think all these drivers are sort of aware, obviously, of that being an issue. But something that I think maybe will be more of an issue is the fact that we're using the old pit lane. But obviously, Paul Ricard's now changed the pit entry is before the last corner on the track. But this pit entry is really easy to get wrong and really easy to lose time in, because you sort of have that really awkward sort of right-hander, right, coming into the pit, so you actually go below the speed limit in that corner. So I think we're looking at the teams that can get that right and can lose the least amount of time on pit entry. They're going to be the teams that, in terms of coming in and going out of the pits, that's where the time is going to be and where the issues, I think, will arise. Because people like to cut really close to the wall on the inside, and if you clip that, bam, there's some damage to your car. There's some time you can lose in the pit stop.
Exactly, and it looks like it's the number 55 take the lead. We have seen a change for the lead here at the stops, and the 55 is snuck ahead of the 56 at the stops, although Mr. Anfarouf looks like he's going to have a look up the inside here, and I can't see if Miguel's going to battle too hard to defend. It is obviously the first lap since they came back out, so cold tyres going to need to be balancing that car as they come back through and get up to racing speed, but the 55 Aston's going to hold it wide. So wide there, that was very dangerous indeed, nearly pushing the track limits. You can have a look up the inside again. We know that it's got that better cornering grip and speed, and that wasn't a bad effort there from the 55 team as they try and sneak away with a win there.
And you spoke about earlier how those little mistakes in the pit stops can really compromise your overall time, and I think that's probably what we saw from the 56, whether it was pit entry or getting into the actual stop itself. Lost a bit of time to the 55, but I think we see we were saying short run versus long run pace, that the Aston's long, the Porsche is short, and I think that's exactly what we've seen just there, is the 56 to shoot straight back past, gets the position again. But talking of Aston Martins, once again the 446 is a friend that's the same factory, or the same manufacturer rather. 96 sticking it up the inside of Bousset, a fun place to overtake if you can make it work, and it looks like he probably has, but no, the 446 is going to come back into Bendor, gets back down the inside, gets in front of the 96, and now can afford to slow down and slow him back up, and now the straight that's not a straight is going to let the 446 maintain position.
Yes, definitely, and it's obviously Ryan being a very talented driver, a large amount of experience in ACC and sim racing as a whole, so credit to him for trying to make that move stick. And like you say, due to the camber and the bank in that corner, it can be quite rewarding if you can get it stuck up the inside. Obviously you need to make sure that the car balance is well set so that you don't lose the rear end too easily, but Ryan is really hustling here and trying to hopefully not lose too much time at the pit stops. I think that's something that a lot of these drivers will be well practiced in now, is obviously if you're faster than cars around you, sometimes you might try and force that over or undercut strategy within the bounds of the driving stint. And if you can do that whilst mitigating the effect of traffic, you can really make some big gains around the cars that you're competing with on track.
For sure. And gains, I think, are going to be really important, because we've said so many times that you get stuck with other cars around here quite a lot, where you might be 3-4 tenths slower than per lap, but you get in the slipstream and you just sort of get stuck there. And the car in front of you can't really pull ahead. You don't really fall behind. It tends to just get, I use the word stuck, it's not quite accurate, but it works. And I think the pit stops is really where that changes, right? If you're leading into the pit stops and you get your pit stop perfect, you can break the toe and you can start to pull ahead. And you need, I think, 2 or 3 seconds roughly, maybe 1.5 if you're 3-4 tenths lap faster. But if you're only 1 or 2 tenths faster lap than someone, you need about 2 or 3 seconds of a gap to start gapping them, to start pulling ahead more rather than them start pulling back in. And as we said, the pit stop is crucial for that, because you can very easily make up 2 seconds there, or you can very easily lose 2 seconds rather, I think is a better way to put it. And I think that's sort of something we saw, the 56 to 55, they lost that time in the pit stops. I mean, they're the faster car at the minute, and they got that position back, but the 55 is sort of able to hang on now, and that gap that was 3 or 4 seconds coming into the pits is gone.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and as we see now, the 777, obviously, Mark Vons from the TPC Sim Racing, having a look up the inside now of the number 95 with Mr. Cairns in the Bentley, and these cars, 2 very big beasts that are going to be going side by side as they come fast through this right-hander here. Looks like Mark's made the move complete and stick, and hook, line and sinker, nice and easy as you like. And just having a look now, actually, at the number 207, we know obviously had that stop-go penalty, and they've dropped all the way back to P27, which has put them quite some distance behind the number 95.
Yeah, but you also have to remember that the positions in terms of points only matter per class, right? So they're still running 4th in class, and in terms of championship implications, the 95 needs to finish 2nd if the 207 finishes 4th. So the 777 getting past the 95 car has moved them from championship win to 2nd place. So they need to try and get this position back at some point during the race. They don't necessarily need to do it now. You've got nearly 2 hours left to do it, but if this 777 starts gapping them, that's where it's going to become a big issue for the 95, because if there's a 6 to 10 second gap, or a 5 to 10 second gap rather, it's very hard to pull that back in a stint, because A, you're going to start hitting traffic, as cars get lapped. B, you're going to lose that draft, and sort of C, I guess, is that you already know that 77 is just as fast as you. The only way you can really get back to a car that's just as fast as you is that slipstream. So they need to make sure they hang on to the 777 right now, not necessarily overtake them. I think that Bentley's slightly faster right now, obviously it's ahead by virtue of overtaking. But if the 95 can just sort of hang on for now and just sort of maintain that position, when they come to the last hour, then they can make that move and take back the championship lead.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and I think, you know, the stops are now all complete at this stage, but there's still a lot of cars out of position and maybe not got the outlap that they needed and stuff like that. So the circuit is still very much alive with activity, and I think we can still see quite a few position changes are going to be happening. If I was at number 95, I'd be doing exactly what you're suggesting. Like, I'd be sitting right on that rear bumper of the 777, keeping with him, maybe force a mistake if the opportunity arises, but if not, preserving the car, waiting until we get later on the race, and then having to push when it really counts.
Talking of waiting, we're going to throw it to a quick advert break, and I believe that's going to be you done, Josh. So thanks for stepping in last minute, joining me, and making sure I didn't go off on too much of a tangent with my rambling, because I do love to do that when I'm on my own. But yeah, thanks for stepping in. I hope you can enjoy the rest of the race, and I hope you've enjoyed working on the first hour and a bit of it.
It's been an absolute great experience, and yeah, I can't wait to see how this race ends up.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm joined by a new and very rare voice on an actual broadcast. I always have him in my ear, but unfortunately for you all, you're going to have him in your ear as well now. So welcome to the broadcast, Michael.
Hiya, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, sorry I always bug you and in your ear to start the race. Yeah, now I get to annoy the audience as well.
God help them all. Going to experience my life as a commentator for the sim grid, but yeah, I tell a lot. You always have the penalties and all the on-track action to throw. So it's really nice to have you. Well, let everyone else hear you as well, but obviously you can keep me in check as well. Make sure I don't start talking about what I had for breakfast or something. Because knowing me, that is the kind of thing I would do. I'd somehow find a way to link that to I don't know, long run pace, or find a way to link it. If these drivers have, maybe had a banana, had some morning porridge, had a coffee, bit of concentration, because this is a track you can easily lose your concentration. Maybe the best breakfast wins today.
Amazingly, I've only actually seen 2 cars so far receive a drive-through for track limit violations. Allowed 4 cuts, or 3 cuts, is 3 warnings, and then the 4th cut's a drive-through. Unless a cut is severe enough that sometimes you can actually get a drive-through straight away.
Yeah.
However, it's a good thing none of these teams ever hired me as a driver, because if they did, I'd get the drive-through at the end of lap 1. So.
I was doing a little practice races for the race I'm doing, and I got bored in one of them because I got spun out at the start, so I was like 10th or something. There was only 12 cars, and so turn 1 I just decided to turn right instead. There's a massive gap in the wall, so you can just skip half the track. I turned right, and then I just immediately got disqualified for cutting half of the track. So that was a fun experience. I doubt anyone's going to try that move today and try and do a 1 minute 10 lap time, because that's the only way to do it. But it's certainly a track.
Like the kind of thing I would do on hot lap mode after I get frustrated.
It's find a way. But something like I think turn 1, right? If you just decide not to turn for the chicane or the Werrell, as they call it, which is one of the worst words to say if you're English. But if you try and just go straight on turn 1, right, and just cut the corner, that's a very easy way to get a drive through straight away. But so you have to make sure that if you do go off track, that you lift off or you brake if you're appropriately cutting the corner, to try and avoid that track limit penalty. And luckily, I think the 2 biggest sort of offenders for track limit penalties, Senior and Brousset, right? If you lose the rear a little bit in Brousset and go wide, it's very hard to actually get a warning for it, because you tend to lose time doing it. But if it's somewhere like turn 3, where you cut that curb already in the race, that's just what you do. If you cut too much and go on the yellow curbs, you don't really have time to slow down and avoid the penalty.
Oh yeah, it's very, very, very easy to get the cuts. Yeah, we've got talking of track limits, I wonder if James Parker wishes he could have just gone straight at turn 1 to try and get past this Audi. He's in the slipstream for it now. This Ferrari very good aerodynamically. Will pick up a really good effect in the slipstream. Looks like he may have just got past the 557. Yeah, the 557's conceded the place. Very nicely done move from James Parker. They're trying to get a bit of a recovery again. The Triple Eights.
It was a team that was up there. I think it had a. It was second, right? Was it second? No, they put it on pole, didn't they?
Yeah, and then
and they got spun out in turn 1. Yeah, they got spun out in turn 1 by the. It was one of the Porsches. It's always one of the Porsches. But yeah, they got spun out. I think dropped to 6th on turn 1, and they're starting to fight their way back up. But we know they are, in theory, the fastest car on the grid, right? So they should be able to fight their way back towards that front battle. But yeah, the amount of time they lost at that initial incident is really an issue. And a car that the 557 actually qualified in 6th, was running up in 4th at one point, shot back down to 6th now. But a car that's going pretty well. I'm not quite sure Maxi Acklander's pace compared to Nico, but I know for a fact Nico's very happy about his stint. I'm reading a chat I'm in with him, and he's flexing his stint and how well it went, which he's perfectly entitled to do because it was a pretty damn good stint. But it's starting to drop back a little bit now.
We're just seeing on screen they were talking about Scene Corner at the end of the Mistral Straight, and just saw that Thiago Lima just able to get past Dean Vella going down the Mistral Straight, the effect of the slipstream, and then just a slight wobble on the exit. Got a replay here. This is 96 Sidemax Motorworks, Ryan Meenan chasing down Tavanari.
Oh, that's a heck of a move.
That's
a heck
lovely.
of a move on the inside of Boucher there. It's a corner where really, if you get a little bit too wide, you have to slow down so much to avoid just losing the rear, because the car starts to step out on you, and then through the whole corner you're essentially drifting it. And the amount of time you lose through that drift, you're looking at half a second to a second just in that corner.
It's something I can do very well. Well, we just saw an overtake from Thiago Lima just
He's
last
just got
lap, but he's just got a drive-through.
I believe track limits.
It will be.
I'm not quite sure where he went off track to get it, but that is unfortunate for the 110 team.
It was turn 1. I think it was turn
moving
1.
up into 14th.
Kind of a little bit inside.
Yeah, moving up to 14th, and then not anymore. They're going to drop down now. Obviously, they were only racing for position as well, because it was the Pro-Am car that they overtook. So I don't know if maybe they got a bit over eager on their overtake and got track limits penalties. But that is something we're going to see all through this race. You know, said time and time again how easy it is to go off track here. I mean, the track sort of encourages you to. I mean, most of the corners you do. I mean, turn 3, the braking zone isn't even on the track. You literally go off track and brake to do it. And then obviously senior, you run wide. It's so easy to run a bit too wide, hit those little bollards and get a track limits penalty at this track. And so I think we're going to see a lot of drive-throughs, especially in that final hour when, you know, let's say you pick up 1 in the first stint, you maybe get 2 in the second stint, you make a mistake somewhere. And then you've only got 1 penalty left before you get your drive-through in that final stint. So you have to be so careful. Yeah, and it's not ACC, but whilst we have a bit of a lull, so I did the Petit Le Mans last weekend, right? The 10 hours endurance race, fly racing, and coming into the final stint, we were on 49 out of 50 instants. So it was so scary. Unfortunately, I got a drive-through, but it's the kind of it's the same in terms of mentality, right? It's so scary when you're one off that drive-through. You know, you almost start making more mistakes because of it, because you start overdriving the car, trying to keep it on track, and you know, and then maybe you lose the rear and go off because of it. And that was exactly what I went through, and I expect what a lot of these drivers are going to go through in that final stint. If they get to that full track limits and know that, you know, one off track, and they're getting a drive through, they're losing whatever position they have. Especially, let's say the 99, I think is a great example. If they get a drive through in that last stint, they go from winning the title to losing it.
Yeah, it's that punishing. And talking of the 99 right now on the back of Ramos in the 55 in a battle for P2. This is not where the 55 wants the 99 to be in terms of the championship. The 99, they probably want to take P2, but they don't even need it in order to win the championship.
I almost want to, if I'm the 99, I almost want to just sit here and just make them make a mistake, because if they spin out, they can lose even more time. That was a bit over aggressive from the 55.
Naughty. Yeah, that was a bit naughty. That
2
was,
moves in the
That
55.
was 2 moves.
And
It wouldn't even surprise me to see the 99 maybe even report that.
yeah, I would expect so. I mean, if I'm leading the championship and I'm fighting the guys that are in second and they do something that's even vaguely naughty, you better believe I'm going to be in the ears of the stewards, just trying to get that penalty in, because that is the kind of thing that can get you a 5 or a 10-second penalty. Or I'm almost inclined to say the 55 should probably. I think they're probably aware that they'll get a penalty for that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
just trying to avoid it.
I mean, there's an hour and 39 minutes to go, and a lot can happen in that time. But you know, a 5-second penalty at this point, even a 5-second penalty for the 55 for that's probably their championship gone.
Yeah, it forces you to drive too fast, I think is the best way to explain it. It forces you to go. Yeah, everyone's at 100% because it's essentially a 3-hour sprint race, right? Everyone's driving 100% for the whole thing, but it forces you to go 105%. It forces you to push right to the limit of going off track, maybe, and then all it takes is a couple of mistakes, and suddenly you've got a drive-through penalty. And took a mistake that's a bit wide from the 55 there, bringing the 99 back in. You can definitely see these Porsches are working better than the Aston Martin in the sort of the start of this stint. I don't know whether this is because of the drivers in the car or whether because it is that short versus long run pace, but I mean, if you look at that gap between first and second, at one point the 55 was leading the race in this stint, and now it's a 7-second gap. So partly they're just falling back because the Porsche is faster. Partly I think Onufriev is just driving a bit better than Ramos, and partly this battle is just pulling them back and back. And this may be an opportunity once again for the 99 to look at it. But the 261 is going to sort of act as a bit of a safety pick for the 55 as he moves over once again, comes back to the right hand side of the track. And I think there's not enough time here for the 99 to make the move done. So he's going to have to be patient here.
Risky, wouldn't it, to launch it there?
Yeah, but we know the 99 I think is a little bit better on the straight, right? So if they can get right to the back of the 55 on the straight, I think this onboard's perfect in terms of seeing what these cars can do. The 55 has so much downforce in that car. So through sort of turn 1, turn 2, where it's quite a high-speed corner. It's in second gear, but it's quite a high-speed corner. You can sort of gain a bit of time there, but the Porsche on the brakes comes back, and now the Porsche on the straights, because of the balance of performance that weirdly makes the Porsche quite good on the straight here, should be able to pull back here, given the fact that there's only a few tenths to the car in front. I expect we're probably going to see a side-by-side into Senior right now.
I think it's just amazing, just in this camera angle that our broadcaster Mike's giving us here, just looking at the way the tyre flexes over the bumps, just the minor bumps in the track and then the actual curbing. Just fantastic in ACC, just to see how the tyre flex works. And the here we go. Checking for the outside. I don't think they're back out of it. Rightly so. Not enough to really risk it at this point. You don't need to risk anything.
And then once again, the Aston Martin goes wide here, and it brings the 99 back in. If the 99 can sneak its nose through the next corner into Bendo, if it can get on the inside, or alternatively pin the 55 to one side of the track and compromise the section, it's not quite going to do it, but it's going to go for the wider exit. And this might be good here. The exit speed is going to be better for the 99 car, but once again, the 55 I think has just got a big enough gap. It's a little bit better through the corners right now, but the Porsche is better on the brakes, and as we said already, it's better on the straights. And what's next? A straight line. Here comes, I think, another opportunity here for the 99 to make the move done. Whether they want to make the move done or they just want to sit here and force a mistake from the 55, if they can get the 55 penalised by just forcing them to drive over aggressive, I think that's almost better than making the overtake work.
Vicky wants it. I think Vinky wants it. She wants that position. Why wouldn't you? You're going for the you want to be the champion. You want to be the winning team. You don't want to just silly. You don't need to take the position, but you want to.
Yeah, but I'm
want to win the race in style.
I'm not a dirty driver, but I'm a conniving driver, I think. So if I can get the title rivals penalised, I'm going to do it. I think I think sitting on the back bumper of them is a perfect way to do it, right? Because you force the 55 to defend aggressively, and all it takes is, I mean, this is going to sound Michael Schumacher-esque, but even if the 99 gets involved in a crash with a 55, they'll win the championship. I almost feel like you kind of just want to encourage the 55 to do something stupid. It doesn't really matter what happens to your car.
Is this going to be enough? You can see how once that Porsche just pulls out the slipstream, it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
It's the power of the slipstream. Usually in GT3 cars isn't huge, but here at Paul Ricard, it's enormous.
And especially with these cars, because they run quite a surprising amount of downforce given the length of the straight these cars are running. Yeah. So the fact that you have so much downforce on the car means that when you're in the slipstream and that downforce suddenly isn't there, the car is actually a lot faster on the straight. So I think it's normally about a 5 kilometer an hour difference between not being in the slipstream and being in it. I know for a fact that with the way I have my Mercedes set up, I do about 276 on the straights, and then I can get into the 280s in a slipstream. In Tokyo slipstream, there's a nice little bit of a toe there from the 99 to the outside of the 55, but he gets a bit leery, gets a bit loose, and he can't quite hold it round. But he's getting a slightly better line through the final turn, and once again, an opportunity to overtake into turn 1. Victoria looking for that second place. I do kind of like this fact that she's not trying to force it, just trying to be a little bit patient with it, because I think in terms of being a bit cunning is probably the better strategy here, because all it takes is for the 55 to do something stupid, make a double move that we saw. I'm still curious what the stewards will make of that, and suddenly it's your title. But it does sort of look like Victoria just wants the position. She's going left, going right, looking for a way to get side by side with that 55 car. Can't quite make it stick through turn 4 into the hotel section, but entering the mid-tower slightly closer this time. Obviously there's one more corner to come where the Aston is better, but a little bit closer than she was before. And I think, as I'm going to mention time and time again, if you can time your run, if you can time that slipstream, you get better on this straight. Then as soon as you get sort of halfway alongside into senior, you're in a really good spot in terms of an overtake. But it looks like she's going to go early, going to go side by side once again, and we do know how much downforce is on that 55. So I think the cars are very similar in terms of straight line performance. And it looks like maybe she's going to get fully alongside, not quite, but we know that car's better on the brakes, and we know now for a fact that the Aston's going to get compromised on the line, but also Victoria having to go a little bit wide on entry is going to lose her a bit of time, and once again the gap is maintained, and they're starting to bring that 911 Porsche in. We see it lurking in the background, the bright green car, you can't miss it, it's catching up.
This is what I've noticed, just looking at using Racing, just looking at the lap times and the cars behind, and this, how many laps has this been going on now? 3-4 laps battle, if not more, between Ramos and Vicky Thompson now, has brought Robin Pocadil and James Parker as well. James Parker's closing in to these two at nearly 2 seconds a lap.
I wonder if maybe the 55 is embracing their inner Nico Rosberg, well, rather embracing their inner Lewis Hamilton, whereas the 99 would be Rosberg in this scenario, and just trying to slow them down, because I think if the 99 gets ahead and can pull ahead, that's it done. But if the 55 can hold on by driving defensively and force the 99 to look in the rear mirror as much as they're looking through their front windscreen, then that's when the 99 might lose a bit of pace, might fall back. If the 911 gets past, the 55 might get an opportunity, and the 99 almost spins out, just about recollects it, but the 911 sneaks by. And now a bit of breathing room for the 55, as we know the 55 was faster than the 911. If they can pull out of the gap, pull out of the slipstream, they can start to gap the 99, and maybe, just maybe, we've got a title fight on our hands.
James Parker's only a couple of corners away as well. He didn't close as big in the last lap, only closed by around 0.6 of a second or so. But still, he's making gains, James Parker. You can see. Yeah, so he was actually stuck behind a back marker, so maybe that last lap lost a bit of time in the traffic, but just clicking on, I just popped on my screen, and you can see him there in the background, James Parker closing in to Vicky Thompson. The 55 is going to be hoping and praying that James Parker can close up, and if you take over, Luke, I'm going to quickly do a little bit of maths and try and work out where what the 55 needs to do and where the 99 needs to come if the 55 holds on to a second place finish, because it's nearly 12 seconds to the lead, so the chance of 55 winning is getting slimmer and slimmer as each minute goes by.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to leave you to the maths. I think I'll avoid that like the plague, but I think it's something like 8th or 9th place off the top of my head the 99 needs, so they're still pretty safe where they are right now, but we've already seen one mistake from them. Could there be another one come in? If there's a bigger spin, if they lose maybe 15-20 seconds, that is all the way back out of championship contention. So it is really a bit of a nervy moment here, but luckily for them, that 911 Porsche is going really well. They've sort of traded positions where the 911 has got close enough for the slipstream to the 55, which we know is not great on a straight, and the 911 is sort of fallen out of slipstream range, still just about on the edge of it. But if the 911 gets ahead of the 55, then essentially the 99 would just have to finish the race. They're pretty much going too wide in the hotel section. Entering the Mistral right now, the 911 would be so close to this Aston Martin. And given that straight line difference that we've seen from these two cars, I think this might be a move for a second place right here. Slipstream should be good. It's only about 2/10, about a car length between these two cars, if not less. And I don't even think you need to time the run here because you're going to get such a big bit of momentum here. We know the 911's running less downforce than the 55. So I think once they pull it side, they should still have that momentum and be able to maintain it. A bit of side drafting. Once again, NASCAR style, as I like to mention. But once again, the 55 just about holding on. And look who's back. The 99 is coming straight back at them. The toe was big enough to pull them back towards it. The 911 can't quite get past Senior. Just seems to be working well for the 55 right now, no matter which line they take in. But the 99 moving close. I mean, we could see an issue here between the 911 and 99. If the 99 gets aggressive, tries to sneak the nose in and clips the 911, maybe we're going to see a penalty go their way. But I think they're going to be smart in that. I think Victoria, she knows what she needs to do, and that is just finish in and around these positions. And she knows she's faster than these two drivers, so she just has to take her time, even if it's all the way to the next pit, all the way to the next pit window, and you just sit behind these guys, and you just pull in and you get a better pit stop than them. Bam! There's the overtake. So 99 just has to be patient here. Maybe let the 911 and the 55 fight, because the 55 cannot afford to lose a single position. So as soon as this kind of thing's happening, you're in dreamland as the 99 car. The 911 is going to try and go too wide, and it's always scary in the Werrell section because you can easily clip someone's bumper, but the 55 holds on, is able to keep the 911 behind, and look how close it's getting now as the red Audi tries to join in the fight, as it tries to unlap itself. Just about. The 55 is holding on for dear life right now. I think letting either of these Porsches by will pretty much end the title hopes for this car, because you can just see these Porsches are so much better at this sort of stage in the stint. I think it's sort of 10 minutes until the Aston will come into its own, and maybe I think Miguel is just not quite as comfortable in this car as we saw the first driver.
Yeah, I've just been looking at the maths, and yeah, it's not looking very good for the 55. They pretty much have to win. If they don't win, even if they hold on to a P2, the 99 could finish as low down as 11th place in class. So it would take something quite drastic to go wrong for the 99, for the 55 to take the championship win from here. But this is probably that moment where the 55 may be kind of kicking themselves, thinking, we've got 2 wins on the bounce. We're holding second place in the 4th race, the final race, but they DNF'd the first one. And that DNF, a DNF in this kind of championship, it's done. It's pretty much over. Yeah,
it's so. I mean, you have to rely on someone else having an issue as well, and you dominating. Right? That's the only real way you can bring it back. I mean, the only other alternative is if the 99 gets a bit over aggressive here and maybe causes an issue, right? And gets a penalty.
James Parker's here now, so we have got
a drive through, stop going. You've got a 4-way battle for second place. I don't think. I think if you presented this script to me at the start of the day as a way that we're going to have the final round go, the 2 title protagonists fighting with 2 other cars for second place, I don't think I would have heard it. And the 888 spins out. He loses it on the brakes and he loops it. A 4-way battle to a 3-way battle after turn 1 as the 888 loses again. I don't know if it's the car is a bit unstable through there, if they're getting a bit of help every time. But the 888 in turn 1, I think he just looped it on the brakes. Actually on turn-in, I think. But here we go with the replay. It doesn't really look like anyone's really close enough. I think he just turns in and just loses the rear, to be honest. And it wouldn't be the first time. Does he get help? No, he gets help from the back marker.
Oh no. That just sums up the Triple 8's luck.
Yeah, that
this whole championship.
If there's one thing you don't want to do as a back marker, it's take someone out that's on the lead lap, and I think that's going to be a pretty big penalty coming their way. I'd expect probably a drive-through is going to go the way I think of the 261 it was. But that's so unfortunate for the 888. There's going to be a bit of rear-end damage. They fall behind a 557 of Maxi Hacklander in the Butler Power Motorsports car. That Coach David Academy car was going so well. It started so well. It got taken out on lap 1, turn 1, and it reaches turn 1, hour and a half into the race. It gets taken out again. It's unfortunate. We still have a 3-way battle though. The 99 has fallen off a little bit. We see a 2.5 gap now to 3rd place. So I don't know if that car's losing a bit of the tyres. Maybe it's getting a bit of tyre deg. or whether this car just sort of loses that long run balance. But the one car that really looks like is going well in the long runs is this 911 car. It just seems to have the pace right now, and it's right on the rear bumper of the 55, less than a tenth behind. That is the kind of gap where you get to a straight and you should be able to get it past, but we know how bad the Porsche is on straights. I'm going to mention it about 10-20 more times in this race because it is such an important factor on a track where really there's no big braking opportunities in terms of overtake except from turn 1, where they have a look, but I don't think they're going to be close enough this time by. I think that's the reason why this track is sort of not hated but disliked by quite a lot of people, especially people like Porsche drivers, because you just cannot overtake into senior if you don't have straight line speed. It just doesn't happen because there's no big braking zone. The Porsche excels, right? I think is the best way to describe it. It excels on their brakes because it's such a light car.
Absolutely.
That it's just able to pull so much time in the braking zone. So when you have this big straight, I'm thinking back to sort of like turn 1 at Nurburgring, right? It's a great example. It's a long enough straight where you get the slipstream, you get alongside, and then the Porsche just shoots past in the braking zone into turn 1. And that just does not happen in senior because the braking zone is literally about 10 meters long, and you don't really brake anyway. You're down to 5th gear, occasionally 4th if you've got old tyres. So it's really a struggle for those kind of cars to overtake, and that's just where you kind of need to force the Aston into doing something weird. I think especially force them into a mistake, right? And that's the way you overtake around here. Or you sort of get lucky into Boucher or Bendel where the Aston goes a little bit wide and you sneak your nose in, and that's about all you can do.
It must be quite frustrating for the Porsches, but I saw it just come up there momentarily. We have had a change for the lead in the silver class here in the Endurance Cup. We do have 3 different classes fighting amongst themselves. You have the Pro class, just the largest class in this top split. We then have the Silver class and Pro Am. And well, for the 95, they're currently 3rd in Silver class. They were gunning for the win for this one to try and jump the 207, who is the current championship leader in Silver class. But it's not really gone their own way so far for the 95. They find themselves down in 3rd. But the 180 is the silver car that's been leading pretty much since that one. And as you see on street, the 99 has just got ahead of the 911, back into 3rd.
Got a little bump for good measure, I think, from the 911 as it went through. But yeah, that car is it's streaky, I think is the best way to explain that. The 99 car. The 101 sneaks by after killing the 88 car. He's now fighting with the Porsches. I think that's mostly because of the Audi, to be honest. And now the Audi goes wide and just gives it back again. Comes back on the track. Is he going to compromise? Well, no, just go straight back off. Not quite sure what's going on with the 101 car, but now they're just compromising this battle. As the 911 has to avoid it. Where's he going?
Some interesting lines.
he's rallying, I think, is the best way to describe it. He comes back onto track now. I'm not quite sure what this car's doing. It's almost like...
kind of line I would take.
We've got what's the line Martin Brundle said when that naked guy... Was it Maniac on track? Back in Silverstone, the good old days of when people could just randomly run onto the track. We've kind of got a Maniac on track in a car right now. As the 1-on-1's all over the place. And I think almost sort of forced the 911 to get overtaken there, because it overtook it, forced the 911 wide, and then went straight off track. And the 99 car just sort of slipped through. And I think that's just, when you're the one car, you kind of have to recognise, oh, I'm right at the back of the field. I should probably let them fight. And just be a bit of a gentleman, because, I mean, they've already killed one of them. They already took the 88 out. I mean, if they keep racing like this, I wouldn't be surprised if they take another car out. And that's taking 2 cars essentially out of contention for a podium would be I think a sure way to get yourself hated by a lot of this grid.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, in GT racing, and that's in real life and in our races here at the Sim Grid, you know, as a blue flag, it's not a sort of get out the way. It's more a sign that you have a car that's lapping you approaching, and you should exercise sportsmanship and leave room for the lapping car. It's not anything like in Formula 1 where I think you have 5 blue flags that you can pass and then you have to let them go or something. And again, you know, in GT racing, it's the blue flags, you can unlap yourselves, but there's a crucial line in the rule documentation there, which is that as a blue flag car, you can unlap yourself if you don't affect the race of the lapping car in front of you. And I mean, we kind of have seen a little bit from this 101. I mean,
It's more a
especially
little
with the
bit, if I'm honest.
is that that they are playing into effect. And actually, looking at the instant report that I have here, the 99 did report the 55 for
the
that
ATT?
blocking that we
I
saw.
would assume the ATT has as well.
I haven't seen that come through yet. I imagine they're probably filling out the form that they have to do. I'd be surprised if they're not. But the 99 has reported the 55, and the 55 is about to actually receive a 5-second penalty. So
The 55?
We'll have to wait for it to come through.
You mean the 101,
The 55
right?
the 55 for the blocking.
Oh,
the blocking
okay.
on the 99
yeah, the blocking
that we
was
saw.
early.
And there is
Yeah,
the
I mean, that makes
penalty.
sense. Yeah, that's.
Just through.
I think it was pretty slam dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty, I think, well established at this point that you do not move twice to defend your position, right? I think everyone in motorsports in general knows that rule. I mean, it is the same in every motorsport I can think of, except maybe, I don't know, NASCAR. I mentioned NASCAR loads. It's because I watch it, so I know the rules quite well. That's probably the only track where you can block as much as you want. But then, sort of the rule in that is, if you're blocking someone too much, then it's not illegal for them to just spin you out. So it's kind of self-policed. But in this, it's a very, I think, especially just GT racing in general, it's very well defined that you do not block twice. And it's only a 5-second penalty. It's nothing big. But I mean, a 5-second penalty right now is 4 positions.
Yeah, it's I mean, the 55 deserves the penalty.
Yeah, for sure.
We saw it so clearly, as clear as day on stream with the blocking, and I mean, they have no defence to it. It's what they did. They broke the rule. The rule clearly says, the rule book very clearly says, you only allow 1 change of line, and they very clearly made 2. And actually, I have just seen the 101 ordered twice.
Yeah, I think
one
there's
for the contact and then for unpredictable driving. So the 101 is now under investigation for 2 separate things. So not.
I mean, I'm no steward, but based off what I see, I think they're probably guilty twice. So I expect a penalty coming their way. They're already 22nd, so I mean, their race can go from second last to last, I guess, in class. That's about it, really. They can just go another lap down. But I think that's just where, when you're a team that's in 22nd and you're multiple laps down already, you just need to be smart and just be polite, right? When the leaders come, I mean, you're entitled to race them and try and get your position back. But when you're that far back, and when these guys are effectively racing for second place, first place if there's an instant with a 56, just use your brain, I think is the best way to describe it. You know, let them race, just let them go, just chill. Just take your time with it, because I mean, we already saw the 99 effectively passed the 911 because of them. They almost took another driver out. They did take the 888 out.
Yeah.
I think that's just a case of
They have actually dropped back a little bit off this this pack now, and we're seeing side by side, Vicky trying to go for the moves, not going to be able to get it around the outside. The 911 is still keeping right in close touching distance. Can the 911 get the launch here? The 911 might hold on for this.
Porsche on Porsche action here as the 911 sticks it down the inside, but Victoria's better on the brakes. She dives it deep and she holds on to the position for now. And all this is just letting the 55 have a bit of a breather, right? Because he's been under attack from, I mean, the 99, the 911, the 507, and the 888 at various points in this race. Finally, they're getting a bit of a breather as a team, but it's not going to be a long one, I think, because these Porsches are so slippery in that slipstream. That's why it's called a slipstream. Fun fact. But as soon as the Porsches pull alongside, it just stalls out, right? They lose all that forward momentum. But with a gap like this, where the gap is sort of 4 or 5 tenths, provided the Porsches work together, which they're not doing, that's when it's sort of the run is timed well. Right? You get massive momentum, and maybe you can get alongside on the brakes, but I think just a little bit too far behind for now for the 99 car. And the 55 once again maintains position. And this is, I think, just going to be the story of the race, right? The 55, I mean, technically they're actually in 5th place right now because they have that 5-second penalty as they chop across the nose of the 99 to maintain a position once again. And I think maybe the 99's trying to induce another penalty. Well, not inducing penalties,
potentially
but
drop to 6th.
Yeah,
I think the Audi might just be in the range, the 557. And the 101's just letting the 888 go. I've just seen on my screen. We'll just jump on. We were on board there with Luca Tavanari, trying to battle Ryan Meenan.
Where the 55's just lost 2 positions. Both Porsches have got by in the final sector. I assume the car must have had an issue. I think they got slowed down by the back marker.
James
based off what I
Parker's got
see.
through as well.
And
I think
suddenly
James Parker's getting through.
the 55 had defended so well in second place all the way. The Aston, I think, will do better on the brakes. Yeah, it maintains the position. Owing to how much speed it can take through those corners with the amount of wing it has. But going from second place to fourth, fourth, in the space of a corner, is a bit unfortunate. I would like to see a replay if possible, Mr. Producer. It'd be very nice. I would assume.
Fly by on the straight though.
Yeah, I would assume this Ferrari is going to get a big slipstream because that thing is slippery. It's got pretty much no downforce on it around here. It generates a lot of its speed and mechanically. So I'm expecting, it should get the position here.
The 101 has just been given a 10-second stop-and-go penalty, by the way, and that's a combination of the 2 reports for the contact with the 888 and unpredictable driving reported by the 99.
And here we're going to see how the Porsche's got alongside. I think maybe it just lost the rear. We sort of got chased up the track a bit by the 99 car, and the 911 was able to slide into the gap as well and both get by. So I'm not a bit of contact there between the 911 and 55, which lost all that momentum for the Aston Martin. It almost got the 888 Ferrari by. But yeah, a bit of chasing by the 99. I'm not quite sure if there'll be a. I think the Aston was sort of stuck out there anyway because they were sort of sliding all around on the braking. But both cars going deep on the brakes really punished the 55 most, and is able to drop these 2 positions. And now because that car, as we said, has so much downforce, I'm curious whether that'll actually help them on the straights. It'll be a car that will stall out as soon as they pull out the gap, right? Well, they're pretty similar to what we saw with the Porsche. But when you have a lot of downforce on the car, that slipstream becomes more effective.
The real disappointment, I'm sure, for the 55. You know, they qualified really well, raced really well. Apart from that incident, which is deservedly so, got them the 5-second penalty. Aside from that, they've actually defended very well. They've made a couple of really good overtakes on the 99 when they're battling for second place, and you see there how, you know, a race can just suddenly kind of change in a matter of just really one corner. You lose 2
quite literally
positions.
in this case.
Yeah, and now you've got James Parker right on your back, and you've got a 5-second penalty to serve, where P6 is only a second behind James Parker. So actually, the 55 at the next pit is now going to be dropping down to 6th place. 7th is a little bit further back. And I mean, 6th is still a pretty good result, but when you're trying to contend for the championship win, it's not enough.
Yeah, now it's pretty much consolidating second rather than going for first now, unless the 99 somehow DNFs. I don't think it's pretty possible. And we see the slippery Ferrari slides to the outside of the 55 Aston, but the Aston with the downforce should be able to go through the corner.
No!
It's actually going to push the 88 off. The 888 just cannot catch a break in terms of instance, once again being involved. I think again I would say that's probably a racing incident. I'd have to see it back again. I'm not quite sure if the 55 went wide or if it was just a bit of door to door, owing to the fact that it is one of the hardest places to go side by side. But yeah, the complexion of this race for the 55 has just gone. I was going to say something up, but I'm not quite sure I'm allowed to say that, so I won't. Actually, I think the 55 sort of pushes the 888 wide a little bit. I'm curious what the stewards will think there, because I mean, to me, there was a lot of room on the inside. The 888 definitely gave a lot of room for the 55 to stay there, and he just, I think, tried to dive in, understeers a little bit in the corner, and just right into the car. So I wonder if maybe the 55 will concede position here, given that they're alongside. I mean, I certainly would, if I wanted to avoid that penalty, because there may be another one coming their way, and it may just be starting to fall apart for this team as they're so desperately trying to hang on to those positions, right? Because the only way they can win is now with the 99 having an issue and then pretty much finishing on the podium. But it just looks like they're just going to keep falling backwards now. They've probably got a decent whack of damage from that. It won't be in terms of time-wise, it won't be much, maybe a 10th or so. But you're going to lose time in the pits, right? They're going to have to get it repaired. You've already got a 5-second time penalty on that. You're probably looking at 8-9 seconds they're going to lose in the pits now as a combination, especially to the 557, because the 888 probably has some as well. But it looks like we're going to sort of see round 2 here as the Ferrari looks like it's going to have the momentum, I think, to get alongside here. And it's just a case of downforce versus top speed, right? This 55 is so much faster through senior that unless the Ferrari can get fully ahead of it, this is a little bit of a love tap there. Unless he can get fully ahead of it, the 55 is just going to dive back inside, and that's just where this corner is so dangerous, because the 55 once again tries to hang it around the inside, can't quite do it. No, the 888 finally gets the position, and now look who's joining in. That was a really nice move from the 888 there, and the 557 now trying to stick his nose in where I think they expect it belongs, to try and get that 5th place. It's a team that has been really unfortunate, really unlucky in their recent endurance racing endeavours. So I think a top 5 for them in terms of confidence would be great for that team. In terms of confidence, I think it's just going down the pan for the 55 team now, as they've gone from 2nd to 5th, technically 6th if you count the penalty, and we are getting towards that the pit window now. So that car is just falling backwards and backwards, and they can say bye, I think, to the championship, unless the 99 DLFs. I think that's the only way now that that's possible. But talking of championship, remember, not very long ago, the 180 was in 2nd place in silver, and that essentially meant that the 95 wasn't going to win the championship, but now the 95 has somehow found its way back through, and there's only 7 tenths in it.
So I was just wondering if you were going to spot that. I was just
just see
that up.
And as things stand, I believe, I believe that ties the 95 and the 207 on points.
No, so they
puts 95 ahead.
So the gap's 12 points, but for the 95 to finish in 2nd and the 207 in 4th, the gap would come down to 2 points. So even if the 95 got the fastest lap of the racing class to get the bonus point, if the positions stay as they are, they would be, with the fastest lap, 1 point.
1 point off, yeah. So they need either to get to the 7.7, or the 207 has to lose that 12 seconds to the 253.
Yeah. And there's a 12-second gap between the 207 and the 253. So
I mean, with an hour, it's easily doable. Either way, the 207 has 1 spin. Bam, there's the title. The 777, I don't know, maybe has a bad pit stop here. Bam, you're in contention for the title. So it's certainly all to play for in the silver class. It's going to be intriguing to watch. I think we might sort of know. I think we know who our winner is going to be in pro. I'm going to go out on a wild limb here and say the 99, who's currently ahead of the only contender, is probably going to win the championship. But it doesn't change the fact that we're going to have a great race here, I think, especially for the podium. We sort of have 5 cars that are in contention for 2 podium positions right now, between the 2 Porsches, the Aston, the Audi, and the Ferrari. All those cars, I think, are capable of that position, whether or not. I think the Audi's going to struggle, just purely because how hard it is to overtake in that car. And given that 5-second penalty, and probably a bit of damage just on the 55, they're going to struggle as well. I'm expecting the 888. We see right on the rear bumper in the 99. They're going to be a car that should be on the podium, provided that another backmarker doesn't take them out, which, based on their luck, will probably happen. I think that's sort of a car we can lock into should finish on the podium, but it is a should. It is a should. We've still got an hour of racing left to go. Anything could happen in these laps.
I'm just actually going to try and do a little bit of maths, and I'm going to try and work out if the Coach Dave Academy car, the 888, can actually get onto the top 3 over in the championship standings. The 4th place right now, 5 points short of P3 in the championship, which is the car currently in the lead. P3 having the 56.
Yeah, so they just have to beat the 56.
So they have to beat the 50. So they need to beat the 55 to get the 3rd place, really, because the 56 is going to get the race win. As we just see, James Parker has actually just overtaken Vicky Thompson there. And I mean, look at this. This is the one thing I love about Paul Ricard, is there's just cars battling everywhere. This whole race,
if you're within a couple tenths of each other right around here, you just can't pull a gap. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen because of that slipstream that we talk about. Is so effective here. It is literally worth 6 to 7 tenths a lap just being behind someone on the Mistral Straight. So it's so hard to pull a gap on someone. It's almost like again, I'm going to reference NASCAR. It's almost like a super speedway NASCAR race where you get that sort of pack racing style, where the track just doesn't allow people to pull ahead. I mean, I say that like we haven't got a 20-something second lead for the front, but it really encourages this kind of racing, and it is so hard to overtake as well. So if you get that car that's maybe a little bit slippery, that's not actually that good over the whole lap, but gets in front of a group, it can start to concertina the group, and that's where you have incidents happen as well. I think with this, I think the 99 is a little bit nervous right now with this sort of a gaggle of cars, right? Because all it takes is for them to mess up their braking once and to run into the back of someone and spin them out, and then to drive to, and then it goes from them comfortably winning the championship right now to it being sort of up in the air in terms of where the 55 could finish. And I think technically the 56 can still win the championship, right? I think mathematically it's possible.
The 56, it would be very, very difficult for.
Yeah, I think they would effectively need something like a stop-go, right, from the 99.
You would need the 99 and the 55 basically to drop an absolute shed ton of points.
It's certainly possible. I mean, we've seen quite a few incidents so far in this race. We've still got a third of the race left to go. I mean, to say it's unlikely, I think it's fair, but to say it's impossible, it's never impossible. The fat lady has not sung yet. So the 56, they're doing all they can do, right? Leading the race. I'm not privy to whoever has the fastest lap, but I would assume they're right up there for given the fact they're A in a Porsche and B leading the race. Or talking of making a move, there's a 557 trying to get up the inside, and it just did not work. Slamming into the door of the 55 car, and I think maybe that's the 557 going from having a good race to a bit of damage, possibly a penalty coming their way, because that was entirely their fault. Sending it up the inside, Maxi Hacklander, on the 55 and Miguel Ramos, and it just did not quite work. I mean, technically they got the position, but getting the position by effectively spinning someone out, by pushing them off the track like that, I think is going to put them full foul of the regulations. I would expect.
This is where you wonder. We have at the sim grid, we have a gentleman's rule where if you do make contact with another car to make a pass, you can give the place back, and depending on the severity of the incident, you may escape a penalty or get a reduced penalty. Here we actually see the incident again. No debate. That's
kind of going
fault for that.
It's going for a gap that's not there, I think is the best way to describe what just happened. I mean, there's an argument maybe that the 55 squeezed them off track, but they weren't really alongside, so I don't think you can really make that argument. I think if they were sort of wheel to wheel, right, the 557 properly had their nose there, and the 55 squeezed them off track like that, then I think there's a case maybe for the 557 team to say, well, actually we were there and we were squeezed, so it's not really our fault the contact happened. But given the fact that it was kind of a dive bomb in a corner where, generally speaking, I don't know how you dive bomb when you're not even braking for a corner, but they managed it, and I think somehow they got the car there, and I think it's pretty safe to say that the 557 caused that, and it's probably going to be penalised for it.
Well, have you noticed this though? The 85, the sister car to the 55, catching really close now. This is just going a bit of bad for worse for the 55. So they've just been hit by the 557. The 557 will likely receive a penalty for it if they're reported. The 55's probably got a little bit of damage that they need to repair from that incident. And now they've got their sister car, the 85, right on their back, which means that they may lose this position on track. And if they don't, they will certainly lose it in the pit lane.
And here's another look. I think you can pretty much safely see here that was this the incident? No, it's not. What is this? This is the first incident they had together.
Yeah.
Oh, it is the incident. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that there's sort of a case that the 55 swung back in, but either way, I don't think the 557 was going to make the corner, so I don't think it matters. I think you can pretty safely say that the 557 caused that, and it's all down to whether they get reported, which I think they probably will, by the 55, and I'm curious what kind of penalty they'd get for that. Yeah, as some had said in our ears there, I think it is safe to say that the 557, in terms of momentum compared to the 55, there's a massive difference in speed entering the corner. But I just feel like the 557 wouldn't have made the corner if they dived in like that. They were carrying so much speed. I think he was still in 5th gear when he hit the curb, which, given the fact it's a 3rd gear corner, I think it's just going to be very interesting to see what the stewards make of it, because I think the So the Aston goes wide and gets an off track, right? So it goes round the bollards on the left through senior, and that allows the 557 all the way back up. Yeah, we see it right here. So the Aston goes really wide. Does it cut the corner? It doesn't cut the corner.
No.
So I don't see it any other way as the 557 causing that.
That looks to me that the 557 is. It's one of those things. The way the gentleman rule comes in, and the way that the penalty applications generally are, is if you've made contact with the car to gain a position, just give the place.
Give it back. Yeah.
Just give it back, because if you give it back, more often than not, the car who's been hit is less likely to report it. Depending on the damage. The 55 actually coming into the pit now, as is the leader, as is P4. I'm going to monitor their pit lane times, see if there's any significant gain or losses in the pit lane. But if you give the place back and the other team doesn't report you, then everything's fine. You just resume your battle on again and try and get past another time. When you carry on, the victim car is certainly going to report you, and you're at a very high risk for a penalty. It's one of those things you have to look at. As a driver, you really need to look at your own incident and think, oh, is there a chance I'm going to get a penalty for that? Yes. Tell you what, let's give the place back and not risk the chance of a penalty. There's a lot of emphasis on the drivers trying to make a bit of sort of self-conscious decision making about what to do when there's contact in overtakes.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of time before we see what comes the way of the 557. I expect it's going to be 10 seconds. I'd say 10 to 15 seconds, because the Aston didn't lose a massive amount of time. But it's just one of those moves where you just don't need to do it. I get, especially as an Audi driver, that it's such a hard car to overtake in, that it's something that where occasionally you go for that dangerous move, because it's the only real way you can get an overtake done. But when you're sort of in that position and technically they're a championship contender, and you've just taken them out even further from contention. It's just a case of, I think, taking the wrong battle or being a bit overeager.
Okay, I had a brief panic moment there when I looked at the 99, and all the timing software for me was showing that Vicky Thompson was still in the car. And I was thinking, but their third driver's on the entry list. Why is their third driver not driven? But actually, it was just the delay for the time board to update. So I had a very brief panic that they were going to receive a massive penalty for the third driver not doing a stint. But that isn't the case. Chris Hoger is in the car now, and James Parker's car did lose a couple of seconds in the pit lane compared to the 99. Not the quickest pit stop from the 888, but that'll be likely for repairing those little bit of damage from the contact with the 55 that we saw at the end of the straight. But the 888 does hold on to the lead over the 99 Porsche. We'll see how that plays out, if they'll hold on to they were third, the 888, when they came to the pit. So we'll see once everyone's completed their final pit stops, if the 888 is still in that position or not.
Yeah, we were saying at the start of the race how penalties are just something that happens here. Most of the field is going to get something, whether it's a drive-through for going off track or, at some point, those kind of things where you get your track limits, or you create an incident in the senior or Brousset where it's so hard to go side by side. It just happens here, and it just changes the complexion of the race completely, because it goes from, at one point you're maybe even battling for the win to, you're down in 10th to 15th place, or you're battling for second place like we've just seen in the 557, and now there's this potential for a big penalty hanging over your head. And even back in the pack, we saw, I think it was the 207, right, got that stop-go for the contact in lap 1. A car that arguably was going to comfortably win the title, right? I mean, they were in first place coming into this. I think it was a 12-point gap to the 95. And now they're essentially one spin from the 777, or more importantly, 4 seconds from the 253 car away from losing the championship.
Yeah, so let me have a look about the pit stops, because I have a feeling the Lexus has pit.
Yeah, because they were 10 seconds apart recently. So it's just that Lexus is closing the gap right now.
Indeed, the Lexus closing the gap. Well, actually, hard to say. Last lap data from their pit stop laps, so we'll have to keep an eye on that because the pro battle is for the championship winner at this point, barring any major complications to the 99. It's a pretty much done deal that 99 will become the champion. The Pro-Am class, it's been dominated by the 89 Aston Martin. They're currently third in class, but the car ahead of them has got a 15-second penalty. They've got a nice big lead in the Pro-Am class already, so if they finish second today, then that means they finished on the podium in round. So the silver class is still that one class so far today that's really, at this point with 54 minutes to go, still hanging in the balance. All it needs is the 95 to have a storming final stint, 777 to have an error. The 777's actually in the pit. The 95's jump. Is the 95 going to jump them? I wonder if the 95 can jump them in the pit somehow. I'll monitor the pit times there for you.
We'll have to see. That's your speciality, the pits. That's your area of expertise. So I'll leave you to that. But yeah, as you're saying, it's certainly it's all over the place in terms of how it can go. Silver is definitely the closest. We look at Pro-Am, right? It's the 89 and the 2 car are the contenders for. So the 2 cars in second place right now in Pro-Am, and I mean they're what, 4th in class? Yeah, 4th in class right now. So it's going to be very difficult for them to do anything against the 89, given the fact that A, they're behind them, and B, they're 4th in class with 53 minutes to go. They need some kind of miracle, and fortunately, miracles don't happen very often, especially in racing. So it's looking like sort of Pro and Pro-Am might be done, set in stone to some extent, but silver is all over the place.
So the pit stop's been completed from the 777, and it's not good news to the 95. Unfortunately, lost 4 seconds in the pit stop alone to the 777. A very quick pit stop from the 777.
But it doesn't necessarily matter if the 253 catches and passes the 207. Given the fact it's only a 2.5 second gap, that is enough, right? That should be enough because it's a 2 second gap.
That would be enough. That's what they're banking on at this point. The 95. It's out of their control. They just need to keep things tidy, avoid those track limits, like the play, hold on to second place. If something happens to the 777 during the stint and they end up gaining some places, fantastic. But at this point, it's out of their control. They just got to keep things clean and just hope that 253 can catch the 207, and it is catching 1.2 seconds last lap. Paul Dietrich has just done the fastest lap of the race for their car.
That is the worst thing you want to be hearing is the 207 car, especially because that Lexus is quite a fast car on the straight as well. So it is one of the worst things you want to happen to you, where the title is in your hands as that 207 team, and for a fact if you get one more position lost, that is a title gone. But of course it could all change if the 180 maybe has an issue. 180 gets involved in an incident or has a spin or something. It could be that the 207 loses a position and gains another one from that. So it is going to be a very nerve-wracking last 50 minutes, I think, for the 95. And I think it's a matter of when, not if, in terms of the 253 getting past the 207.
Oh, we saw Zachary Royale trying to overtake the 112 Jeffrey in the Pro-Am with McLaren there, and just having a little wobble, it seemed, under the braking.
It was more than a little one, I think. It was quite a hefty wobble, actually, but yeah, he managed to catch it, though. That's the one thing that happens there quite often, right, is you catch the slide, and then suddenly the car grips, right, and it just projects you leftwards. And when that happens, that's when you go into the wall, because you fly along the car park. I mean, the wall is about a mile away around Paul Ricard, but given the fact that corner is like mid-fifth gear in a lot of these cars, even though it's a mile away, it's a mile closer than you want it to be.
Now, how's this for a little dynamic? I'm not sure what's happened to the 85, but they're no longer on the grid.
Genuinely don't know where they are.
And this means that the 55 has now gained one more place back. Now you go, okay, you know, the 55 is now 6th, would have been 7th, because the 85 was ahead of them. But that's, you know, a precious few points in terms of what could be the decider of who finishes in the top 3 in the championship overall. So I want to try and find out what happened to the 85. But is that maybe I don't know, is that a tactical retirement from the 55?
But that is also where, like, let's say the 99 gets track limits, right? Gets a drive-through. It could put them far enough back that 4th place is enough for the 55 car, or maybe 3rd place is enough if they can get the 557 car, which we know might have a penalty over its head. So there's a potential that, despite all these issues, if the 999 has an issue, or the 99 rather, not the 999, the police aren't turning up just yet, I don't think. But you know, if that car maybe gets a drive-through, and it could go from 0 to hero for the 55 car, just by virtue of luck. So it is still possible. I think possible is the word to use. Possible that someone else could win in pro. I think it's likely that someone else will win in silver versus the leader.
Well, how's this? The 557 has got a penalty.
15 seconds, as you can see on your screen.
Seconds. That's the incident with the 55 that we saw. So the stewards have deemed that the 557 definitely at fault of aggressive driving, and 15 seconds. That's major. That's going to drop the 557 down to 8th place. Yeah, that's quite a drop.
Unless they can pull a big gap, that's the 55 gaining another position by virtue of the other car's misfortune. Or rather, I mean, actually, it was their own misfortune that caused the penalty because the 557 punted them. But they're effectively getting the position back, so up into 5th place now. And I think one more position, you know, if the 99 has an issue, now there's a potential where the 55 could win the title. But in terms of issue, the 99 needs to literally finish like outside the top 20 for them to do it. Overall,
just need to interrupt you, Luke. I want to see if broadcaster, if he can pull up 20th place, because the 253 is all over the back of the 207 in what is the battle for last place in silver clad. But this is the position that will determine who wins silver championship. I'm sure Sidemax Motorworks 95 is cheering on the 253 like you would not believe right now, because they need 253 to get in front of the 207. If they do, the 95 wins the championship.
And I think it is a question of when right now, because that Lexus is good on a straight. It's got the slipstream, is looking to go around the outside here. This is maybe the opportunity for the car to get past. I mean, no, it was gaining by about half a second a lap. So once that Lexus gets ahead, it's only going to pull further away, I think, from the 207 car. This is a last-ditch effort from the 207 to defend, but they have to be careful that they're not involved in an incident. Because if they get spun out, if they maybe hit a wall and get DNF'd, then that could be the championship fight done. So they need to be careful here, but they also somehow need to find a way to keep this position, because otherwise that is probably them losing the championship. It is worth pointing out, though, that the 180, the car currently 3rd in class in silver, is not that far behind the 95 car. It's only about 8 seconds behind. And that is definitely doable in 46 seconds. As there we go, the position, it should be done now, because the 207 goes deep on the brakes, so the 253 slides past, up into 4th in class, and the 207 currently loses its championship lead to the 95 car.
And this car in front of it now, this is the 96 Sidemax Aston Martin in front of the 207. Now the Sidemax car is trying to catch the 446 Aston Martin in P7, which is a little bit in front, 5 seconds in front. I wonder if there's going to be maybe, though, a little bit of tactics from Sidemax here. If they get the 96 to almost hold up the 207 to secure their sister car, the 95, the championship win in silver. I wonder, this is where, teams which have more than one car running, they can use those kind of tactics to help each other out. I wonder
the Bentley had a little bit of a slide there. On the right-hander coming just before the mistrial, the Bentley had a little bit of a slide, so I don't even think they need to slow them down, because that car just lost a bunch of time coming onto the straight. They're going to lose only more as it starts to fall out of the slipstream. So I think actually they can just look forwards, because the 253 is so much faster than the 207 right now. It just seems like that at least the driver in that car doesn't quite have the pace necessary.
Ooh, there's a touch there. And
another one. The 446 goes around and probably going to hit the wall hard. Actually keeps him out of the wall just about, but I think the 446 and the I think it was the 55, right? No, it was the 96.
That
It
was
the
the
96.
That was the 55
Was
they
it
had
55?
contact with. That was the 55.
Oh, it was the 55. Yeah, tell her 3 Astons in a row. It confuses me. I thought that's a winning combination in most games.
It means the 96 has got in front of them though.
Mm-hmm.
I think. No,
and I wonder.
55 is
I kind of feel like the 55 just didn't turn. It's very weird. Because, I mean, we were in the middle of the track and the 446 sort of turns as if to go for the corner. And the 55 just kept going straight. So a little bit weird. I would like to see that again if possible. From a, maybe sort of like a chase cam from behind, I think would be the best angle. Because we saw that touch, right, in senior. And it almost felt like maybe the 55 wasn't quite appreciative of what happened. And just tried to sort of hold the 446 out by just not turning in. And the 446 turned in anyway. And just drove straight into the side of them. So I'm a little bit curious whether someone will be apportioned blame for that, and if so, who?
I'm going to keep an eye on the incident report form and see if that gets logged. I
almost feel like both teams have a case. It's just why I find it very confusing, because I think from different interpretations you can blame both drivers, right? The 55 didn't turn when there's a corner. I mean, generally speaking, when you approach a corner, you're supposed to turn for it, right? You don't go straight. It's not how corners work. But the 446,
speaking, yes.
yeah. But the 446 also sort of just turned straight into them. So whether you could say it's the 55 intentionally sort of trying to hang them out to dry by just essentially squeezing them to the edge of the track, or the 456 turning in when there's a car there. I don't know which way you go really in terms of blame, or whether you say you can't really apportion blame to either of them because they're both, they're both at fault for different reasons, and then you just sort of call it a racing incident. But yeah, I mean, it might have championship implications. It probably won't overall, because obviously the 55 is behind the 99, so it doesn't really matter if the in terms of championship. But it could mean that the 55 loses out on that second in the championship, right? The 56 can overtake them if they maybe get a drive-through or a 15-second penalty or something.
Oh, I think at this point,
I think they might have already lost it, right?
I think they already have, yeah.
I mean, effectively, you have to remember they're effectively 5th, right? So here's the incident was perfect. So the initial incident, that's really a racing incident.
Oh dear, the 55 is actually under investigation twice now, by the way.
I just look at that and it feels to me like the 55 is trying to hang the 446 out to dry a bit, and it just forced them not to turn in. Do you know what I mean? Like their approach to the corner was to turn late and force the 446 out wide, and the 446 didn't expect it and just turns into them. Yeah, this is the same angle. We're going to see it here. So that bit, it's fine. You just see here they just don't really turn. I say that the contact is sort of before you would turn in. I think. I almost feel like maybe the 446.
There was 2 contacts, wasn't there? There was a little rub, and the main contact that flew the car off. The 55 actually has just received a 10-second penalty, and that isn't for the incident with the 446. That's actually the incident with the 888, which happened some 10 laps prior, 15 laps prior, at the same corner. Kind of a similar incident.
But I do feel like
wasn't it? It was a scene at the end of the.
It was a scene, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I look at that now, and I think that in terms of where the first bit of contact was incidental, so a slight tap. Both cars just sort of taking the racing line. Maybe the Hinsai thinking the other driver would leave them a little bit more room, but nothing major. And it was just that second bit of contact where it kind of felt like the 446 turned in too early. I think it's the only way to describe it. It sort of turned in, like almost tried to bump them. Like it kind of felt like they're trying to door slam them. Rather, now that I look at it, so I in my opinion, is either a racing incident, or you say the 446 apportions blame, and given the fact they're the one that spun out, doesn't really do anything, right? You've punished yourself essentially by spinning out. So I think it'd be unfair. I do think it'd be unfair.
That they can look at all the angles, they can slow things down.
It was just that rear one. We had the chase cam where you sort of see that in terms of where you turn in for the corner, you see the bump sort of happens as the 55 sort of looks to turn into the corner. At first, I thought it was a little bit deeper in, and it was sort of the 55 turning really late. But now that I look at it, I feel like the 446 almost turns early. So whether they were trying to door slam them in sort of a sort of telling them off, a bit for running wide on senior, I'm not sure. Whether it was just an accident. I don't think it would be. I think maybe unfair on the 55 to penalise them, but I don't think there's enough. I don't think you bother penalising the 446 if you do think it's their fault, because they've already essentially given themselves a 15-second time penalty by spinning out.
Well, I'll keep an eye on it in the report.
It's certainly something.
47 in the chat. The 446 has reported the 55, but the 10 seconds penalty to the 55 was for an early
the other contact.
The 888, not that incident with the 446. That's just been reported now. So the 55 finding their way into the woods.
It's just not what you want when you're fighting for a championship. Even if the steward reports are not quite necessarily, even if you don't actually get any penalties, just having that in the back of your head, knowing that you're under investigation constantly, is really something that's going to affect you as a driver. If every time you're in that little incident, it breaks your concentration, it breaks your flow. It starts you're going around the track, and instead of just focusing on the corners, you're thinking in the back of your head, am I going to get a penalty for that? It wasn't my fault. Should I have done something differently there? And that's where you could potentially make more mistakes. Make another one.
They need to have into the back of their minds as well, the 55, is that this is now 2 penalties they've received. They received 5 seconds of the blocking that we saw, and then the collision with the 888. So now the fact they've been reported once again, if the stewards do deem them at fault, it could potentially be a very big penalty, because that would be their 3rd incident in a very short space of time. But just in 3 incidents in a race is excessive. So,
yeah, that's when the stewards start going hard on you, right? Because they think, first one. Well, I mean, they were just driving a bit. They were defending a bit too aggressively. You can just look at that and think, in terms of context, right? They're fighting for a championship, and they can sort of see it going down the pan, so they needed to defend aggressively. And they just did a bit too much.
The rule, didn't they?
Yeah, and they just did it a bit too much. And then obviously you penalise them because that's the rule, but you don't go, oh, they're. Yeah, in terms of overall standards, because of that one penalty, you don't look at them badly. And then you look at them doing it again, where they defend too aggressively again, and you think, well, actually, maybe they need a bit more of a warning in terms of stop doing it. And now, I mean, I don't think it's fair to. I honestly look at that, and I think the issue in senior is more important in terms of blame than in the next one, because Bousset, it's a case of the 446, I think, turning in earlier than the 55, and that's it. I don't think there's blame there, but then the 446 was pushed out wide by the 55, so there's an argument maybe that the actual origin of all that is that the senior incident rather than the Bousset one. So I'm curious if the stewards look at that, in terms of the 55 essentially driving to the edge of the track, because the rule is, in terms of forcing someone off track, is leave the car's width, right? And it kind of felt like the 55 left the car's width to the bollards, not to the edge of the track, which is not what the rule states.
Yeah, it's always a tricky one when it comes to actually judging incidents as well. Like, there's so many factors that you have to look into. I mean, I myself used to do a bit of stewarding previously, and
I'm glad
judging
I'm not one.
a car's it's a thankless task a lot of the time. And yeah, one of the things that always has to come into consideration is leaving space, and it's one of those things that when you go into like a chase cam or a bird's eye view, it's quite easy to see when you leave space, but actually when you're there as a driver and you're cockpit,
it's very hard to judge.
It can be quite hard to judge, and but this is why, as a driver, particularly in endurance racing and particularly in sim racing, where you don't have the same sort of, you don't have all these other factors that come into play in real life. Maybe you're running on limited FOVs, especially if you're playing on like single screen. You don't have the sort of the G forces that you have. Key one, you don't have the element of danger that you have in real life. That element of fear, that element of thinking, This is not a situation I want to put my car in, because if I get this wrong, I may crash and end up losing my drive or costing thousands of pounds in repair.
Or injuring yourself.
Severe enough, injuring yourself. Sim racing have put themselves into situations where they don't put themselves, and it's better just to always err on the side of caution, I think, because there's one key thing between most sim racers, apart from the top sort of 1%, there's a key difference between those sim racers and, you know, your pro drivers in real life, is that sim racers will, and they do, always make mistakes. You can just sit behind someone and eventually there will be a mistake that you can use to capitalize on. Whereas when you're in a sport, I don't know, something as high tier as, you know, the very top end of GD Challenge.
I mean, even then, you see safety cars, you see incidents constantly. I remember back to, I think it was one of the Masano races. I mean, go back to what we're having here. You see a battle for second place right now. As the 888 is closing in on that Porsche, obviously lapping a back marker there. Closing in on the green Porsche here for second place. The 888 is probably the fastest car on the grid, but given those incidents it's had, it's pushed it back, and it's lost contact with the 56, but they could still finish second.
They are the fastest. I will very shortly look at the I'll do some very fun math calculations, and I'll see where they stand in terms of finishing as the champion, if they're able to take second place. Yeah. So I will be doing shortly some math calculation. 30 minutes. Try and find out where everybody is in terms of the where we are at the moment. Is that the 95? Currently Owen Wenlock driving that car. They currently on the way to a championship win in the silver class. After we saw the 253 Lexus of Diedrich overtake Trenchek in the 207 Bentley. That was a crucial overtake. So that means the 95 currently on course to win in the silver class and Pro-Am class. Second in class currently is Friesen in the 89 Aston Martin. They're on their way to a championship win in the Pro-Am. It's been a very dominant championship for them and fantastic results. If things stay as they are, they would have finished on the podium, which is a fantastic performance from them. And the 99, this is potentially the first race where they finished first in the first race, third in the third, maybe but it should be enough as things stand for the 99, the Pro Championship winner in the Simgood Endurance Cup, the first season of the Simgood Endurance Cup. So
Have returned.
as things stand, you know, we do have our championship winners potentially sorted, but there's still a lot to play for, and I will try and find out where the Coach Dave Academy could slot in, because they're fourth in the championship standings right now, but potentially with a good result here, especially if they can take second place from the 911, potentially is enough for them after the torrid time the 55s had. Potentially going to get another one as well.
Or third, yeah. So the 56, I think, as things stand, should slot into second place, I think, in the championship, right?
The 56 would with the win, yes.
And if the 888 finishes second as things stand, I believe they'd also overtake the 55 for third.
I believe so. I will double check it, but especially with that penalty coming into play. I mean, that penalty, that for 10 seconds, even if they don't get another one, it's enough to put them down to 8th. Yeah. So, they only need, what is that? That's 14 points behind the 55 in the current championship. So, what is it? 14 points they need to gain. If we go by the assumption that the 888 would stay in third, let's say they stay where they are now, and the 55 would go to P8, then that would gain them 16 points, which means the Coach Dave Academy car would jump into the third place overall in the championship standing by 2 points. If the 888 gets second place, then they've done it regardless. So yeah, you know, this is a fight now to get onto the there's a penalty of 15 seconds just coming for the 180. Could that mix things up in the silver class?
I believe that only drops them down one position, right? Because it's like a 9-second gap back and then 12 to the next car. So I think it's going to be okay. Because it's something like a 30-second gap between the 180 and the 253, and then another 6-7 seconds back to the 207. So I think it's not going to change anything. But maybe if the 180 gets one more penalty now, we were already speaking about the 55, how the stewards get stricter the more penalties you get. They're probably now teetering on the edge of something quite big, something quite chunky. If they get a chunky penalty, then that's going to have big implications on the championship. So 95 is praying right now that the 180 team just sort of stays clear of incidents.
I'm going to try and work out the gap between the 180, if I can, and the others. It's a little bit hard to work out the gaps right now because they're completely different parts of the track. But 15 seconds, I think it's
only one
not quite
position.
enough. Yeah, I think it's not quite enough.
There's a 10-second gap to the 76, and then another 10 seconds to the 97, and then it's 4.
Yes,
and then it's 4 and 10 again. So
yeah, and Dijak himself is 11 seconds off in 18. So maybe that penalty as it is, not enough. So no need to panic for the 95 yet.
I think seeing the car that's currently giving you the championship getting a bit skittish in terms of getting involved in incidents is going to make you a little bit nervous, because all it takes is them to be involved in one more and there's your championship gone. But as things stand, the 95's in a good place. The 207 just doesn't seem to quite have the pace. They're 8 seconds off now. The 253, and they need to make that move to get the championship. So I kind of feel like realistically, pending an incident between from the 180 or the 253, I don't see the 207 making that gap back up, given the fact that the overtake had happened this stint. The 253 is pulling ahead and not falling back. Talking of pulling ahead here, the Coach Dave Academy car has now moved up into second position. They got the move done on the 911 car, so that gives them third place in the championship as things stand. And I think the 55 would have to now finish 6th, I believe, 5th or 6th to get it back. So at the start of the day, a car that was looking to win the championship in the 55, they put it right on the front row of the grid, and it's just all gone wrong. Incident after incident, and a couple penalties going their way has really scuppered their hopes, and they're going to go from 2nd to 4th as things stand. It's a rough day for the Racer Cat team, but it's still a top 10, and still, 4th in the championship is nothing to scoff at.
I think this goes back to a point that I mentioned earlier, though, for the 55. They DNF'd at Monza, and I know they were involved in a collision. I think quite early on in the race. And for whatever reason, at some point during that race, they decided, enough was enough and DNF'd. And because of that, they don't collect any points, yet everybody who finishes collects points. And it's come back to bite them now, because had they actually just soldiered on, even if they had finished, I don't know, last in class, they still would have got points. And if you're gonna, in a 4-round championship, if you're gonna throw away a result to DNF, it's gonna be very, very hard for you to win a championship. It's just not gonna be possible.
Even if you gain 2 or 3 points, right, just from driving to the end of the race and letting other people DNF, that could have been the difference. I think it could put them in a very different position, because there were 2 positions? No. So if they'd won the race, the 99 would have had to finish 6th, right, to come into this. So they knew in their head they absolutely had to win this race to have a chance. If they maybe got 5 points in the round they DNF, right, 5 points, it's not that hard to get. So there's only a couple of positions. I can't remember the point system off the top of my head, but I kind of feel like you'd probably get that amount just by finishing the race. Especially if you're one of the faster teams, you could probably get a few positions back just on pace alone. And that 5 points could have been the difference between you having them, the 99 car having to finish 6th and maybe 4th. And it goes from them coming to this race knowing for a fact they had to win. If they can come into it with a different mindset, knowing top 2, top 3 puts us in an okay position, and any incident from the 99 gives us the championship, you can approach the race differently. And they had to be very aggressive with their defending. They had to be driving at 100% pace, which is where they made a couple of incidents that lost them time. And because of that, I think it's just made their race go worse than it needed to go.
Absolutely, you know, they've put themselves immediately on the back, haven't they, for the whole champion by DNFing at the first round. I mean, here's the card. We haven't talked a lot about really throughout this series. Generally, very very quick Matuszka in the Muka Motorsport Audi, and we've not really seen a great deal from them on our street throughout the races. I don't think it's been a championship to remember for. But a very very solid drive from the team, and here in the Endurance Cup you do get points based only on your class, so they may be 11th overall right now, but there's 2 cars in front of them who don't take points away from them, so they are 9th in class, which is a fairly solid result. I can actually quickly take a look and see where they've finished throughout the season. They currently, that's the wrong class, currently in 8th in the class right now. It was a good start for them actually, finishing 5th at, which is, you know, a track that really the BOP for the Audi is not favourable. So a very good start actually, 5th place. But it wasn't the best races for them in the rain at Silverstone and Nurburgring, finishing 30. So 9th place is a pretty good showing in comparison, improvement on their last.
It's a lot better than I do, so can't fault them.
It's a lot better than I do. I would have got the team disqualified right now for constant track limit violations. But most importantly for them, for the 26, is that they will jump the 97 Sidemax car in the championship. So because the 97 is P7 in the championship right now, but a bit of a disappointing showdown. It's 17th today, so at least the Muka Motorsport car will jump up into 7th place in the championship.
And talking of jumping places, the 15-second penalty for that 557, we were talking earlier about how they were going to lose a couple of positions for it. But the 55 car is just dropping off constantly now, and the gap to the next car that would overtake them, you know, the 96 is the car the 557 is now worrying about because of the 10-second penalty for the 55, and it's a 10.5 second gap now, so they only need to pull, less than 5 seconds on the 96 car, and they keep P5. So it's a really nice showing for that team. You know, Nico had a really great first stint. Maxi's stint was, they went from 4th to 6th with Maxi, and then he got that penalty right at the end, which sort of scuppered their forward momentum a little bit. But as a team, I just think recently in general they've just been struggling to just have an okay finish, right? If we look at Bathurst with their DNF, I think just in general in this championship they've had a lot of issues in their races. I think they were down in the 20s for Monza, off the top of my head. It's just not been a great championship for them as a team where I don't know much about the guy in the car at the minute, Mr. Bullwinkle, but I know that Maxi Acklander and Nico are great drivers, right? I mean, they're racing in real life, both of them. They're so experienced.
He races in ADAC, doesn't he?
Yeah, they're both very fast drivers. So as a team where generally, if you look at that team, you think they probably should be a championship contender. This is the best finish they're going to have in this championship. It's just quite a surprise.
It's actually a little bit unusual for me to see them in the Audi. It's not a car. The races that I've seen Nico doing,
they're in the Audi for the World Cup and the Endurance.
They are in the Audi, and I think
but in SRO they were Ferrari.
Because it's such a strong car in the tracks on both calendars, and it kind of makes sense in a way to use the same car if you're competing in both the Cup and the Cup. It does kind of make sense to use the same car for both, in terms of the consistency, in terms of, you know, getting more and more hours in the car. The more hours and seat time you get in the car, naturally the better you'll be in it.
Exactly.
So it's a little bit unusual seeing them in the Audi, because, you know, Nico is a driver who I've seen do so well in the.
Yeah, I think part of the equation is the fact that in real life Maxi races an Audi, right? So yeah, I mean, it's not the same. Obviously, it's a sim. You know, there are differences between the real car and the sim car. but the general approach to the car, and I think general approach to the setup of the car, is something that is actually surprisingly similar. Right? The setup changes you make to an Audi in real life on a real racetrack is something you can apply in ACC. You don't quite necessarily make the same change, but you can make a similar change. Right? You know roughly. I think as an Audi driver, you can come in and think, how does stiffer springs affect the car? And you know that in real life, and you know that ACC is a good enough sim that the real life change to a spring will be similar, if not the same, in the game, right? So I expect that's part of the equation. Part of the equation is the balance of performance being quite favourable to the car. Slightly less so than the Porsche. I'm surprised when they didn't force them into it, given his affection for Porsches. But it's not a Cayman and it's not an RSR, so I think Rene doesn't like it as much. But
well, this Porsche we're on board with has done a really stellar job today. Jana Kausch on board at the moment, and this is another team, the 911 MSR Liga Endurance team. This is a car that they were actually on their non-attendance in the first round at Monza, and they've actually, in the 3 rounds since, including today, they've actually performed pretty well. And again, it's in a way, it's the 55 scenario, where you think it's maybe a championship of what could have been. In the 55, it was the fact that they just DNF'd. They just quit the race and retired the car. And in the 911's case, it's that for whatever reasons they weren't able to attend. But they've had a very, very good showing today. This is by far their best performance of the championship. And if they hold on to third, which at this point I think they will, Toka actually falling back a little bit from them. Chris Hoker doesn't need to push. There's no real, but they're not going to gain anything by pushing. They're going to win the champion anyway at this point. So a very good show though by Jana Kausch today, and if they hold on to a podium, whether it be second or third, it'd be very well deserved. They've driven a fantastic race today.
Now, I must think, in terms of, we're talking about those teams that don't finish races when they have incidents. I just think you need to iron that mentality out in endurance racing, because literally people use the phrase anything can happen. Sometimes a bit too much, but that is literally the basis of endurance racing. Is that you could have 2 hours 50 of perfect running right now, and all it takes is one spin in senior and the race is done, right, over 3 hours, and it's so easy to do. So it's like even the first race at Monza, where we spoke about that team having a DNF. All it takes is a couple of cars to spin out, or maybe a big incident in turn 1 that collects quite a few of the championship contenders, and suddenly you go from finishing last and not getting any points to getting maybe 4 or 5 points here or there, and sneaking those points in could be the difference between first and third in a championship. It's genuinely that close. So
the scariest one would be a disconnect, wouldn't it?
And that's what we saw for the 556. Right, they were running, I think, 6th overall when they had the first disconnect. That put them all the way back to the back of the grid. Then they had to get super aggressive, to try and make moves. And we saw them, I think, spin one of the Porsches out, one of their back markers. They hit someone trying to overtake into Bendor, and decided to call it there, presumably because they knew they'd get quite a big penalty for it, and thought, well, there's no point. Because I guess at this point about championship implications, so I think this was actually the Porsche they spun out. But anyway, this is a race where DNFing is not a massive issue, but because you sort of know where you are. If you're the 99 and you're involved in an incident, you absolutely do not DNF, right? You go to the end, you just see whatever points you can get. If you're a car
if they DNF, they lose it.
Yeah, exactly.
Simple as that. If they DNF, they've lost the champion. It's gone.
Yeah. So if you're running even just top 5, I think, in the championship, you are never letting. Even if you get like 4 or 5 minutes of damage, you're sitting there, you're taking it, and you're getting back on the track. But one of the cars lower down the grid. Unfortunately, both the Battle Power Motorsports cars have been stuck down there because of various issues. I can sort of understand them DNFing. Right? I mean, I would still say go to the end because A, it's a bit of experience on this kind of grid, which they don't necessarily need, but I think you can never say no to a bit of experience. B, it reinforces their mentality, right, of endurance racing.
When I mentioned a disconnect, the 44 Porsche has actually suffered a disconnect. I didn't actually get to see what position they were actually running in. But I've just noticed they've rejoined because they've rejoined a driver order, and now one of the drivers is in a brand new car, the wrong number and no laps on the board. So they've reconnected in the wrong order. But they've clearly just disconnected in the last few minutes.
Yeah.
And now they're back, and this just shows. This is the volatility of racing online, and in real life it would be the same, I suppose, as having an engine brake failure, suspension failure, something that puts you in the pit lane and takes numerous minutes to repair. This is the sim racing equivalent, I suppose. Is a car disconnect is, I don't know, you can pretend it's simulating an engine failure, a car back in the pit, fix it and go back out again. But just a few moments ago I just shouted out talking about the performance in the 911 of Jarno Kausch, and earlier I was also talking about Wolf Matejko and the 26 Audi Muka Motorsport, and something actually that Dan Ferrier has pointed out in the chat that I completely did glimpse over. I did notice this earlier on, and Dan's pointed it out in chat, was actually the 26 Audi had a drive-through very early on in the race, in the first hour.
Yeah.
And they were in last place, and now they're 10th or 9th in class, 10th overall, 9th in class, and they were last at the first round of pit stop, in the first hour. So a fantastic fight back from them. So maybe I say it wasn't a championship to remember. It's maybe they were hoping for better results than they've had, but certainly today they've proven their talent and skill and their ability to fight back from last in the first hour to get back into the top 10 at this point of the race. So very, very good drive from them.
And I remember back in the Bathurst race of the World Cup, they had a lot of issues at the start of the race, and there were quite a few teams that had the same thing on the left. I remember the 557 team, right? They had I think they actually had a bugged game. Well, that was what they claimed, at least. They said that the game had loaded the setup wrong, so you can't change setup during the race. And the car was just basically like on ice skates, and they couldn't control it. But that car, the Muka Motorsports car, was one of the cars that was involved in, I think, 2 or 3 incidents at the start of the race. They went a couple laps down to get the car fixed. I think they actually had a penalty as well, and they drove to the end, and they actually, I think, finished top 15 overall. So once again, it was just a case of, if you just get back out on track, if you sort of stick to that endurance mentality of, never give up, expect the unexpected, you can really gain a lot of positions just from doing that.
Well, how's this for an endurance mentality? We talked a little while ago about the Silver Class Championship. Now, Owen Wenlock in the 95 Side Max Motorworks car, that car currently on course to win the Silver Class Championship, as the 207 finds themselves last in class. However, not only has the 95 looking for a class win, they're actually closing the gap enormously down to the 777, so they might even recover their drive to the point today. They got hit in lap 1, if you remember that incident with back Luke, where their teammate, their car, went into the back of them. Not their fault, there was an head, and they just misjudged the braking. I think the 96 went back and spun the 95 round. It made the 95's job really hard to recover. They got a helping hand with the 207 getting some. But now potentially not only they're going to get the class championship win, they might even get the class win in this race as well. Just finish it off with a P1. That would be a fantastic achievement. Owen's driven a fantastic drive in his final stint to close down to the 777. It's just a case of how quickly can he pass with 11 minutes to go.
And what a way to do it as well. If you're going to make an overtake for the lead to win the final race of the championship and the championship with 10 minutes to go, that's pretty much the perfect way to end your race. I don't think you'll write a better script if you tried. But the one thing they need to avoid here is pushing too hard, right? Because if they start to go off track, they were very close there in senior. They were like an inch or two off from getting an off track there.
Thought that.
Yeah. If they rack up a couple off tracks and get a drive through, they go from winning the championship to not winning it. Because all they need to do is fall behind the 180, which admittedly is a 39-second gap if you include the penalty. Which I think would actually put you behind the 253. But yeah, you need to really be nervous about that now, I think, because you know for a fact you can't. I mean, yes, if you take the position off the 777, you confirm that you've won the championship, right? But right now they're winning it.
Yeah.
they're pretty comfortable in it. They know that the 180 is not far enough down. You know, the gap is massive between the 180 and the 207. So that's not going to happen. The 207 is not going to get the 253. So right now, the only way you lose the championship is by either making a mistake or by another car having an issue. And with 10 minutes to go, I just feel like you should just. Whilst I would want to win the race if I'm them, you know, I can understand why I'd want to go for the 777. I almost say you just stick with what you've got. I guess it depends on whether the teammates are paying attention to that. You know, it might be that they're not watching, and you know, if there is an incident, they go sort of from hero to zero. Talking of incidents,
oh, that's the back marker. That's the 253.
The 55 again involved in an incident. This time, I would argue not their fault, as I think one of the back markers, just dived up the inside to try and make the pass, going for a gap that wasn't quite there, and the 55 was not expecting it. Gets turned around, and a race of incident after incident. There's another one in the hands of the 55, and that actually puts them very, very close to the 26 in terms of with that 10-second time penalty. It releases the 446 and the 96 as well to just sort of push to try and close up in that 15-second gap to the 557 car and get a position as well. But that is such another unfortunate moment for that car, the 55. They just cannot catch a break.
I mean, in a way, for the 55, I mean, you feel for them getting hit there. In terms of the positions, they're going to lose those positions with the time penalty anyway. In the grand scheme of things, in their overall finishing, much of a difference. But this is not the kind of driving you'd expect from the 253. I know the 253 is trying to, but not there, not now.
It's a dangerous place to overtake. But now I look at it, they weren't fully alongside. They did understeer a little bit, and I think went a little bit wide on corner entry. But that's owing to the line they have to take.
It's one of those things, really. That
with 8 minutes to go.
8 minutes to go. You're trying to unlap yourself, and they're not actually going to gain any places because of it. The 253.
And they could probably have got them on the straight anyway because they're in a Lexus, and that guy's pretty much running max downforce on an Aston Martin.
He's an onboard. Look at it. I mean, they're not chasing anyone. They're not going to catch the. So the overtake is purely just for track position. And like I mentioned before, you know, blue flag cars can unlap themselves, but they have to do it.
That's my only argument. The only way I think is they can justify. I mean, you look at that though, and they are fully alongside the 55 car. Yes, I mean I agree with you that going for the move this late in the race is just a bit pointless. Like you don't really achieve anything by unlapping yourself. Well, getting back past 8th place, and not for position, but. They were fully alongside, and they were on the sort of the inside line. You know, they were making the corner, and the 55 sort of turns across their nose. So
how is this though? Someone's just pointed out in chat. What happens if the 253 gets the penalty? The 207, depending on the severity of the penalty, could the 207 gain?
And we've just seen there the 95 Bentley tried to make the move stick on the 777 and actually lost a bunch of time because of it, as the I believe the 911 and the 888 lap these guys. So they're right on the bumper, and now they're seeing that if they're watching the broadcast, they need to make this move stick, and they were right on the bumper of the 777. Yeah. If they can make this move work, then it doesn't matter what happens to the 253.
There you go.
Oh, and a bit of a bump and run, but it's a bit of a bump and run. I think they should concede that position really. Because the only reason they've actually got the overtake done is because they effectively try to spin the 777 out. So that might be another one that the stewards are going to have to look at, and we could see some big stewards' decisions in these last 10 minutes. I'd be intrigued to see a replay of this, because it kind of felt like it was a bit of a bump and run from the 777 there, or from the 95 rather. I think they clipped the right rear of the 777 car and just got them a bit loose, and that's why they passed them. So I almost say, just err on the side of caution if you're in the 95. Let them back past and then re-overtake them. Right? You have the time to do it.
I was flicking through my windows, checking lap times and things, and I actually missed that point. I just happened to block my window just at that very moment. Let's see this back on the replay. It was just typical at that very, very moment.
Yeah, the 777 loses a bunch of time because these two guys are lapping them. Right? So they let the guys by, the 888 and the 911, who are racing for position, obviously. Right at the front of the grid. They let them by, yeah, and then the I think they get compromised a little bit on their entry into the final turn by being either alongside or slowed down by the Porsche, if I remember correctly. And then you just see the 95 just gives them a little tap, and it gets them loose. It's right in the exit of the corner here. Oh no, never mind. There was no touch. I tell a lie. I thought it was a touch from the angle we saw, but no, they just got a bit loose on throttle. So no, it's a perfectly fine move. I should stop talking sometimes. And there we go. 95 moves up into the class lead, confirms their championship win, unless they spin out, and there's an incident for the 253 that goes against them. But as things stand, no matter what happens between the 253 and the stewards, the 95 has the silver championship, and the 207 goes from 12 points in the lead to last in class in second position on the final I guess the final half an hour of the final race.
Yeah, the 95 now, all they've got to do is just finish and avoid track limits. That's all they've got to do. They can basically take it easy now.
Talking of track limits.
Take it easy. And, that's a new line.
Yeah, he tried to go deep on the brakes to get to the outside of the 888, I think, and it just the rear steps out. Once that happens, you can't take the corner, right? You either spin out or you correct it and go off track. And I mean, he lost time to the car in front, so in theory, you wouldn't actually get a penalty for it. But that's an incident you don't really want to do if you can help it. But it should pretty much confirm the 888, I think, into that second place, because now they've got the 1.2 second gap.
Yep.
The Porsche loses that draft that is so crucial for that car to maintain sort of race pace with someone.
Absolutely.
And it should just allow the 888 to pull ahead a little bit.
Oh, the 777's got a drive-through.
There we go. I'm not quite sure what for. I'd assume it's track limits. Yeah, so the 777's going to lose time. The gap isn't big enough for them to go behind the 207. So for a second, I was thinking maybe the 777 and the 253 could get penalties big enough to put but the gap is too big to the 207. So the 95 can breathe another sigh of relief as a penalty that threatens their title doesn't quite take it away from them. 3 minutes to go now. It's just about getting to the end. They've already got a 4-second gap if you're the 95 car. So if I'm them, I'm doing 2-minute laps right now. Just completely avoiding any semblance of a track limit warning, any possibility of a spin. If there's a lap car, just get out of their way, because just finishing the race right now gives you the championship.
This battle we're on here between the 96 Sidemax Aston Martin and the 446 Ricky Monsters Aston Martin. I don't know if you remember, this battle has actually been going on since the start. This has been a 3-hour battle basically between these two.
And that's just where you see
changed.
Yeah, that's just where you see the. We mentioned sort of the pack racing mechanics of this track, right? This track lends itself to two cars staying together for a long time, and we see it with the 888 and the 911. Even the 99 is still right in that group. Those cars they've really struggled to pull ahead of each other and pull away. And yes, the 56 has that big gap at the front because they were able to break the draft. And being 1 or 2 cents a lap faster when you've not got a draft with the car behind is more than enough. There's a very big Lexus in the rear mirror, but unless you can get that sort of 2-3 second gap to the car behind, you just can't pull ahead of people. It's so difficult to do, and that's why we see these groups form where almost like little trains, right? I mean, we've to an extent got them through the whole field.
Yeah, it's actually been a really fantastic race. I know people hate to drive this circuit, and I joined that club as a driver who, if I pop onto ACC and just want to do a little bit of hot lapping, a bit of practice or whatnot. This is not a track I'm going to want to do that. It's just not fun to drive here to just hot lap and stuff. But the racing here, and I haven't done many races. The track's so unpopular on public lobbies. But the racing here it's always been fantastic. The races I have done, it's been some of the best races I've had in ACC, and today's race I think is another one that's been fantastic. And we did just hear over the radios that Ogorodnikov in the 56 Porsche, barely seen them on stream today, they've on the final lap and storming their way to their first win of the season.
Talking of ways to win, right, on a track where we say it's hard to get gaps on anyone, 15 seconds ahead at the front of the field, especially to a car like the 888, who's been so rapid around here. I mean, the 99 are a team where I know I like to fanboy a little bit about Samir, but those guys are ridiculously fast and only in 4th place, so that's a testament to how fast, right, the first the 911 and the 888 are. But the fact that the 56 has such a big lead on that whole group is a mightily impressive performance, and really something of this track I was not expecting to have.
It's been a dominant display from them, really, ever since they took the lead. There was one moment, wasn't there, at pit stops, where they actually did lose the lead. They got jumped, but they took the lead back straight away on the outlap. Didn't take them long to reclaim the lead, and they've just stormed off through a lead. And on the final lap, I have to say the 253 has just received
a drive-through.
Drive-through, which will be a time penalty because they're not going to be able to serve it. Yeah. So the 207 will gain a position, but
I don't think it's enough.
I don't think it's enough. The night we said before, wasn't it? The 9, I think.
Yeah, winning means that the 207 needs to get 2 positions, I believe, because it's a 12-point gap. So the 207 will need to finish 3rd if the 95 wins, and obviously currently they're 5th. So they need 2 positions. Obviously they're going to get 1 from that drive-through, so they'll finish 4th in class. But they need somehow they need the 77 or the 777 or the 180 to have big issues in the final lap. Which generally, I don't think we're going to see. So there we go. Checkered flag, I believe, for the 56. There we go. So the 56, the dominant display, a 15-second lead to the 888 car, 2nd place, 3rd just behind the 911. The 99 4th place secures the title pretty comfortably in the end, beating the 55 by 5 positions. As things stand, if not 6, but depending on the cautions. But a dominant display from the Pro and Relton team across the whole championship. Yes, they didn't win the last 2 races, but they won the first one, and they haven't had too many issues in the next 2 races. So just being able to stay in those top positions the whole season with, I just noticed they came 1st in the first race, 2nd in the 2nd, 3rd in the 3rd, and 4th in the 4th. So nice bit of consistency from them.
It's been getting progressively worse.
Oh no!
The final. Oh no!
In the last corner, he's going to give the position back, isn't he? The 96. He's slowing down. I think he's going to park it and wait for the car to come back past, because otherwise you're going to get a much bigger penalty. But that's actually, I think, does the 55 sneak back past?
The 55 has snuck past.
There we go. Yeah.
Second penalty. So it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
But
penalty.
A unique way to end the final corner, I think, with the 96 parked on the line, having to let the 446 back past. A lot of respect for them at least doing that, and they are going to maintain position to the 55. So I don't think the stewards will bother to look at it. But
fantastic sportsmanship, though.
Yeah, but this I mean, you're going to get a much bigger penalty if you don't do it. So I can understand why they did. But yeah, nice to see. Not nice to see the incident, but nice to see the end. But congratulations, obviously, to 95, the title winners. On the last day as well, the last stint of the race to take the position, and in the end they actually needed to do it as well because of that drive-through. So a really big final stint there to get the 1st place in class. At one point it was nearly a 10-second gap, so a really good final stint coming through for that team to move them to 1st in the race, 1st in class in the championship. And of course our silver class winners, I believe, was the 89 Aston Martin in the end of the Madhouse Racing NA team. I think they came 2nd or 3rd in class overall. It was a pretty quiet race from them. 2nd in class. Yeah, they just sort of.
They are championship winners, probably.
Yeah, comfortable championship winners, I should mention as well, because they beat the team in 2nd place on the racetrack. So putting it in their hands, it's always a nice way to do it, right? You come into the final race and then you're 4 or 5 positions ahead of the people that need to beat you by 4 or 5 positions, and you just. I mean, you're not driving a canter. I mean, you have to put in some absurd lap times to be fast in this lobby, but. To sort of know that the championship's in your hands and you can just drive normally is always a really nice feeling. And I think for something like the 207, where suddenly the championship's not in your hands and you need an issue for the 95, it's such an unfortunate feeling. But yeah, congratulations to our championship winners, and what a cup it's been. What a final race it was. I mean, it's the first one I've worked on as a commentator. I didn't get to do the first 2 races because obviously you have it was David and.
We had Chaz Draycott and Connell Courtney.
Oh, Connell, there we go. Yeah.
For the first 2 rounds, they had Kyle Lawrence join them as well.
And then we had a bit of an unexpected, I think, commentary duos for the final. As Jack wasn't here in the end, so
Indeed, it's not usual I'm here.
Yeah, so it's been a interesting day for us all, but at least we got treated to a pretty great race, a pretty great way to end the Endurance Cup. And obviously, this isn't the only series there is. You've got the Sprint Cup, which are going all the time, and on the 29th, everyone, on the 29th, it is qualifying for the Spa 24 Hours on the 31st.
Indeed, I can't wait for that. So, Luke, at this point, I want to thank you for doing the commentary throughout this. I know you yourself have got your own race.
Yeah, same car, same track. Yeah, in a Mercedes, so it's going to be quite depressing. But
in a Mercedes, yeah, you're going to suffer with the BOP.
Yeah. I'm running max splitter on the thing just to make it work. It's, just
trying to try and get any form of turning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing 54s, so it could be worse. I could be, I guess, it could be in the 55s, which I probably will be because I'll make a mistake, knowing me. But yeah, to go from an hour of driving this morning at this track to 3.5 hours of commentating to another hour and a bit of driving, so I'm going to be Paul Ricarded out by the end of the day. And I'll be racing Nico as well from the 507 team. He's in the race. He'll be much further up the grid than me. But
so he's in that race as well. So he's doing 2 Paul Ricard races. He's going to be good.
Well, I mean, he did do the first stint, so he's been.
Yeah, he's 1 hour in the car.
He's been stressing for the last 2 hours as Maxi got that penalty, and in the final stint, I think they didn't lose a position because of the penalty in the end, because they pulled a 16-second gap on the car behind them, so they didn't lose anything. Which is lucky for them.
Yeah, they didn't.
They still finished 5th.
Yeah, they still finished 5th. Yeah, they didn't lose it to Sai or Condacciotto.
Yes.
Okay, so Luke, at this time, I'm going to let you go. So you can go prepare for your own race. I'm going to handle the interviews. Thank you very much for joining me.
Can you keep Nico busy so he can't prep, please? Because then I might need to.
I'll do a short interview with him because I know he want to go do his own race, beat you. But thank you again, Luke. It's been a real pleasure to commentate with you, and good luck in your own race later on this evening.
Thank you very much.
So let's bring in Mr. Nico Hillenbrand and say hello to him. Let's drag him on in here. Hello, Nico.
Hello there.
How was that race for you then? 5th place finish for you and your team. You've managed to hold on despite that penalty, 15-second penalty you had to serve at the end of the race. You had a big enough gap that you held on to 5th. Are you happy with the result?
I'm insanely happy with the result. Basically, my heart rate was already constantly at 200 pretty much after qualifying, because it went way better than we had expected. And, then the entire race, it just went very, very well for us. Up to P4 after the first stint, and obviously then a lot of fast drivers got in. Maxi then got, into that little kerfuffle with the 55 and stuff, so that happened. Got the deserved penalty for it, and then we just basically constantly drove with one eye on the delta to the cars behind.
You had to engage Daniel Ricciardo mode. I go faster.
Yeah, pretty much. And honestly, Tristan, I can't just give enough of a shout out to him right now, because he was basically he was feeling sick for the last couple of days. May even have corona and stuff, but he still managed to wrap all of this together. Absolutely insane drive from him, and basically no errors on his part, just constant lap times and all that, and wow.
He did good, and he had to deal with the fact that penalty, because that penalty was given, was it given to him just after he'd started his stint, so he couldn't serve the time penalty in the pit lane, he had to serve it post-race.
Yeah.
That means he's come into a car which he's not driven, he's not feeling particularly well, and he's got to contend with the fact that there is a outstanding time penalty. So you're constantly playing this guessing game of where does that penalty put you. Compared to when you're mid-race and you just serve it in the pit, you don't, you just kind of serve the pit and see what happens.
Quite honestly, I think it was actually better that we got it instead of in the pit lane, because we had then some freedom, to actually have a look and constantly check how the gaps were going. And honestly, Tristan is one of the guys, he's putting himself down way too much normally. He's, very, very non-big ego. So, sometimes he needs a bit of a reminder that he's actually a really fast guy, and I hope today was enough of a reminder for that. So, honestly, he managed the gap insanely well. I kept him updated the entire time with how the delta was going until he told me to shut up because he couldn't concentrate because of it. So, just generally, overall, what can I say? A couple of the races, we had bad luck from our parts, also mistakes and stuff this season. But overall, this season has been so much fun for all of us. Just driving together as a team has been absolutely phenomenal in this series. So I want to thank all of the sim grids and obviously, my teammates at Butler Power Motorsport as well. Our 556 was going so well as well. But very, very sadly, disconnect issue because of a local internet provider from Johannes Weiss. So that would have been also a very nice route to follow throughout the race.
Indeed, because it was looking like their best campaign so far as well. I mean, looking at the results for you, standings are not yet updated. That takes a little bit of time for the standings to update. But I can see that this is your best result of the championship. You will gain quite a few places because there's a team above. Well, there's 2 teams above you who have actually left the championship. So I don't know if you'll get enough points to take over the other one because the other team was the FTW racing team. They had to unfortunately leave the championship due to their own internet problems. From 5th in the championship, they've had to leave. But you will actually jump your sister car, the 556 DNF, and you will jump a couple of other cars as well. So potentially breaking into the top 10 in the standings overall. We'll have to wait and see how it looks.
Special.
Well, keep an eye on the Discord. I'm sure the standings will update soon. But a fantastic drive from yourselves and the team. Despite the penalty, you've had a very good result. And you dealt with the pressure Tristan dealt very well with the pressure to hold on to 5th place despite the penalty. So well done to Nico. Before we go, are you going to be racing in the second season when that's
for
announced
sure.
in due course?
We'll be there in plenty of numbers. We'll field 6 cars next season.
6 cars.
No, not 6. We don't have that many drivers, but honestly, we've had so much fun in this entire series. We had so much fun this entire season, and it's just so competitive here. It feels like how the ADAC GT Masters is unofficially the World Championship of GT3s, pretty much, with a level of competition. Literally, it has the same vibe here because you have such a big grid. You have the grid so close together, even though the pace is so high. So it's just insanely cool to be part of such a competitive field.
Well, it's fantastic to have you on the grid, and do keep an eye on Discord and on the website. And the new season will be announced in due course. But fantastic to talk to you, Nico. And I hear you're racing Ricard. So it was a pleasure to speak to you, and good luck in your race again at the same track. Same car?
No, actually changing to the Italian Audi, the Lambo.
Change to the Lambo. Well, I wish you all the best in your race, and a pleasure to talk
thank you
to
very much.
Thank you.
I do. See you later.
So that was Nico Hildebrand there from the 557 Audi Butler Power Motorsport. A good finish for them, finishing 5th place here team. And next, we're going to bring in the American, the number 89 Aston Martin, winner of the Pro-Am class, Madhouse Racing, Ryan Whitlock. Fantastic result from you again today. That's 4 on the podium, isn't it?
How's it going, y'all? No, I'm playing.
Tell us about the race, Ryan. How was that for you? Did you?
I did the first stint. I've done the first stint every race. We had a little bit of unfortunate contact at the start. And actually, in trying to avoid contact, I also got 2 track limits penalties that my teammates had to manage. Oof. But yeah, just a pretty plain first stint. And I know a lot of our Pro-Am competitors had some issues, like a few drive-thrus and a few crashes and penalties, and we just avoided that, stayed consistent. Didn't have the best pace, but we still pulled home P2 in the championship.
Indeed, it's looking at your results, that's P1 in the first 2 races and P2 in the last 2 races.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is an incredible record. 4 races, 2 wins, and 2 second places. I mean, you're a class above everybody else.
Yeah, and
the have been outstanding.
and the last two races were definitely not problem free. You know, like I said, damage today and Nurburgring was. I made a meme about Nurburgring. It was so chaotic, but I mean, still P2 after some difficult races. I can't complain.
If I remember at Nurburgring, didn't you have a contact early on? And you ended up having to make a very early pit and were last place for the first hour or so. Is that right?
Yeah, Nurburgring. Actually, I made contact 4 or 5 times, and then started on dries.
You were in that bouncing incident. I remember.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, that video. I'm proud of that video. But yeah, and I was on dries, and then we accidentally put dries on again for the last stint, and we still pulled off P2 there. So I think that made our lives much easier here. All we had to do was, if we finished at least P3, it was ours no matter what the number 2 did. So.
Well, at least you didn't accidentally put on wets today.
Yeah, the long back straight makes setting up pit stops much easier. It's like, all right, driver, tires set, pressures, fuel. Yep, okay. Now
Indeed.
You can box. Yep.
You can have YouTube and just watch the stream on the other side. Drive on one screen, watch YouTube, back, relax, have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
In terms of the race, did you enjoy it, Paul Ricard? I know a lot of people don't, and myself included here, don't really enjoy driving Paul Ricard, but for myself personally, I love to race here. I've had some of the best races here. What about for you? Did you enjoy racing here at Paul Ricard?
Yeah, the racing is enjoyable. It's pretty sketchy sometimes, honestly, because other than the back straight, if you make a move, it's definitely going to be a little bit of a send. We definitely just, when a few guys were coming up to us, it was like, this isn't for class, just let them go. It's not worth it. And like I said, 2 of my track limits warnings were just trying to avoid contact at turn 3. Although the racing is enjoyable, the track is also pretty fun, even though it looks awful. It's still fun to drive. So
I saw somebody in the comments earlier. I can't remember who wrote. This track would actually be so much better if it actually had gravel rather than just runoffs. If it had gravel on the edges of the track, it would add an extra sort of, I suppose, danger element to it, which would make it a little bit more exciting. Whereas right now it's just all tarmac, it's just all runoff, and I don't know. It doesn't, apart from the track limits, it doesn't quite as punishing. But
I'm not complaining about it being tarmac. It helped us on lap 1, but the rest of the race it's annoying to look at.
Yeah, indeed. At lap 1, when the field's all congested, it can be a bit of a godsend compared to, I don't know, something tight and twisty with grass everywhere, such as Brands Hatch.
Or Nurburgring.
Or Nurburgring, get pushed off into grass or gravel, or Laguna Seca. So many tight and twisty tracks. But in terms of the Endurance Cup, it's been a really dominant display for yourself and your team. As we said, with 2 race wins and 2 second-place finishes in class. With the second season coming soon, cannot say when, cannot disclose that on stream, but a second season coming soon, are you and your team going to be signing up again?
Yeah, actually, Madhouse, shout out Madhouse. We've picked up a few new drivers recently. We've already got them and some other leagues we're running. So I think for season 2, we're gonna switch up the main car. So instead of Pro-Am, maybe we can try and contest silver. And I think we're also gonna try and get another entry, hopefully into Pro-Am or maybe Split 2. So we're gonna try and do 2 cars next season.
Try and get a second car in. That's fantastic news. So we're looking to expand the cup. I can't say too much about it. Get some notifications. So yeah, there will be some changes to the Endurance Cup, bigger and better, as we say. And as I say, it's been a really dominant performance. And you get a second car in for next season. That'd be fantastic. But a pleasure to speak to you, Ryan. And well, you're over in the States, so it's probably still quite late morning, early afternoon.
It's noon.
Noon. So go off and enjoy the rest of your day and celebrate with a bottle of champagne or something for your class with.
I can't drink yet, but I'm not drinking age is 21. I'm 19. But yeah,
in a
see you
couple
later.
of years. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
I've myself out of the channel. So going now to bring in the Coach Dave Academy team. Coach Dave Academy team of Gregor Schill and James Parker. So let's drag them on in here now. Here we are, Gregor and James from the Triple Eight Coach Dave Academy car. A solid performance from you two. Second place in the race, and we're still waiting for the results to update, but I believe that should be third place for you in the championship as well. How was that race for you guys?
Stressful actually, quite stressful. Towards the end, the tyres got too cold, which is why I struggled in the last half an hour with very bad grading. But overall, I think our pace was actually really good. And the delays we got, obviously with the back marker turning us around, and that for the rest of that second stint, the tyres are pretty flat spotted. So I just tried to drive back up to the pack that were fighting for P2. But yeah, I'm very, very pleased. And Gregor's just let me know that I think we're in P3 in the championship provisionally.
The results have just updated. You are third.
So, considering the amount of bad luck we've had in the 4 races we've had, yeah, I'm happy to walk away on in the P3 of the championship. So, very satisfied in the end.
I think you guys actually got the fastest lap of the race, not only in class overall, I believe.
Well, yeah. I know at the start of the third stint, I pushed really hard to catch up to P2. Which probably didn't actually help with the grading when they got a bit cold, the front tyres. But I know the guys in the first stint were going really fast, so in the early laps. So I'm not sure if it was fastest lap or not. 54.1?
It was. A 54.1, yeah, it was the fastest lap. So you didn't need the extra point, but you got one either way. So
I'll take that, Michael. I'll take that.
And using the Coach Dave setups that you and Gregor and the rest of the team have built, no doubt.
Yes. Yeah, if there's proof that they work, then I guess this race is kind of it, really, isn't it? To be fair, qualifying was so close, and I wasn't sure how the race was going to pan out. Top 5 are like separated by a tenth or two, weren't they? And Gregor did a mega stint in the first hour just to stay out of trouble and just keep us on the road and kind of just line us up for that second and third hour where we could attack hard and recover some of the lost time we had. So yeah, ultra happy. Setup works a dream. The grading on the Ferrari is just it's a car trait. The way it doesn't work its front tyres, so you're always going to struggle later on if it goes down. I think it was 13 degrees, was it at the end, Michael?
Around that 13? Point, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't make a real note of it, but it was definitely cooling down significantly.
So in that regard, you just got to hang on at the end. So yeah, I think we maximised the result, and maybe. Gregor told me about P1 having issues. I think maybe without the delays that we had, lost 7 or 8 seconds with the spin and trying to fight back through that pack of 2, 3, 4, P2, 3 and 4. Maybe we could have been right on their tail at the end. Who knows?
They were lapping a little bit slow towards the end, but I wasn't too sure if that was more an issue, more a case of they were just dropping pace off because they had such a dominant lead, so they were just kind of chilling. If they were having an issue. Well,
I think
someone did join in the commentary box, so I didn't get to really track what they were up to.
Well, I think Gregor's got a theory on that, haven't you, Gregor?
I watched their stream and they were talking about braking issues at the end, so could be this is a possibility why they were so slow at the end,
That could be a factor. I mean, if they've got maybe hardware issues of the brake, you hope they can get that fixed in the next 19 days prior to Spa, because they've got to, like yourselves, they've got to Spa 24-hour to prepare for.
Yeah,
and was actually in-game braking issues. So with the brake pad, I guess they run too aggressive on pad 1 or so. That's my theory at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think they went a bit too aggressive, maybe on the ducks or the pads, and they were running out of brakes at the end in the actual game. So yeah, I was trying to close the gap at the end, just in case they completely fell off. the brakes failed completely, but they just managed to hang on, and they did drive a great race. To be fair, they made no mistakes at the front, did they? And they deserved the win. They drove very well.
Indeed, once they took the lead, they lost it momentarily after the first round of pit stops, and then overtook the car for the lead on the outlap after the pit stop. So they pretty much in the lead the entire race. It was a pretty dominant display from them. But for you guys, I think P2 a fantastic result, but it's almost like the whole championship spin. It's almost like a what could have been.
I was about to say that, Michael.
There's little incidents, sometimes big incidents in the other rounds, like Monza or Nurburgring. If it wasn't for those, it's just a frustration.
Yeah, we lost a lap, obviously, at Monza and recovered very well. Also, we lost 40 seconds at Nurburgring, still recovered to P3 in the end. And obviously, today we had the cleanest race of the season, basically, and we still managed to attract trouble of some kind. So yeah, very. When you look back, I think we probably maximised our recoveries, and we made we didn't really make any. We made zero personal mistakes. There was no mistakes on our front in terms of contacts or issues. We just the luck of it was the roll of the dice. It's luck of the draw. Sometimes this happens. And yeah, season 2. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we have a bit more luck.
Well, on season 2, I mean, with James, you know what's coming, but Gregor doesn't, so I won't spoil the surprise. But, announcements for season 2 are incoming, and not only for the Endurance Cup, but we have got announcements for our Sprint Cup, which finished a little while ago now. It's been quite a while since we had our last round of the Sprint Cup, so more announcements coming on Endurance Cup season 2 and Sprint Cup season 2, as well as a few other things coming up soon. But Gregor, you're just gonna have to you're just gonna have to pay attention to socials and the website and the Discord.
Yeah, I will try to stop nail biting, to wait for the announcements. So.
I'll tease him, Michael. Don't worry. I'll just give him little hints. Nothing else.
Drop him teasers like a livery for the second season.
Yeah,
like that.
But I hope there was plenty of action today in the stream and gave you guys plenty to commentate on.
There was loads of battles. This is one of the discussions that we had throughout the whole race, whether it be when Josh Marden joined the commentary with Luke early on, and then when I joined midway through, and maybe you guys agree or not, is that Paul Ricard it's not really that fun a circuit to drive on. It's not a circuit that I myself would load up on Hot Lap, for example, and drive around. But to race here, it's always a joy and it's always great fun.
I think because it's got such a wide variety of corners. You've got obviously Sector 1's very low speed, Sector 2's kind of high speed. It's 3 corners and a kilometre long straight, and then Sector 3 is obviously a bit of both. So the car setup is always a compromise, and obviously the racing with the way the different cars work in ACC, they're stronger in different parts of the track. So I guess you do get these great kind of cat and mouse battles where on certain sectors one car's extremely strong and other sectors the other car's very strong. So I can see why it would produce good racing. And I mean, this is my second ever race that I've ever completed at Paul Ricard, Michael. So I completely agree with you. It's literally down on my list of tracks that I actually ever drive. And it is funny, however, it's kind of almost universal. No one seems to like driving round it. But at the same time, yeah, it produces great racing. And in that final stint, in the last half an hour, it was a great battle between us and the Porsche. They were much quicker in Sector 1. But on the straight, we could defend pretty easily with our top speed advantage. And then Sector 3 were pretty equal. So it was very... Until the mistake was made late on by him, which gave me a bit more of a buffer to the line. For numerous laps, we were, nose to tail at different parts of the track. So It does promote really good racing. I think if they just put a few gravel traps around the track to make it look a bit more visually appealing, I guess more people would like it. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, this is what someone pointed this out. I mentioned this to Ryan in the previous interview as well. Someone else, I think someone said in the YouTube chat, just a couple of gravel traps and stuff around the circuit just adds a little bit of an extra sort of danger element to it. Makes things just a little bit more interesting and a little bit less forgiving, I suppose. And I know it's an unforgiving track on track limits, but that's not enjoyable. It should be unforgiving because you put your tyre into the gravel and spin your car off, not because you went over a bit of extra tarmac and gained a thousandth of a second and therefore have a warning.
Yeah, I mean it's a track that you do push and push and push with the track limits because there's outside of an in-game penalty, there is no penalty. I agree with you there. Obviously, the in-game penalties are extremely harsh, probably for that reason, I imagine. So, it's extremely tough. I mean, a long endurance race, it does take judgment and skill to not pick up a drive-through, because it only takes one lapse in concentration, or you take a liberty just too far on one lap, and you can just quickly rack up those track limit penalties. So it's tough, especially when you're fighting hard with someone, to not take advantage of that. But yeah, I really enjoyed that race, I have to say, and it might persuade me to drive Paul Ricard maybe a bit more. Who knows?
Well, if you had to cut one of the 4 tracks we went to in this series, Monza, Silverstone, Nurburgring and Paul Ricard, if one of them had to be dropped for the next season, which one would you drop?
I don't know really. I couldn't tell you, would be my answer.
You love them all equally.
Well, the amount of time I have to spend, the amount of laps you do round, and they kind of all become a blur. They all become just a bit of tarmac that you attack. They end up kind of meaning anything. With the amount of laps we obviously do for work around here, so it just becomes another bit of tarmac that you've got to take advantage of. So, I mean. I do like the Intercontinental GT tracks. So in season 2, if there's a couple of them included, I know also we're doing the World Cup at the moment, but yeah, I do like Laguna Seca. That is a favourite of mine, I have to say.
Laguna's one that divides opinion as well. I really do enjoy Laguna, and then I think it's a bit like a Marmite track in terms of general opinion in ACC. Some people love it and some people hate it. There's very little in between. But in terms of the next race, you mentioned the World Cup. That is the next big race that we have here at the SimGrid. In 19 days, we will go for the qualifying, slightly different format as well to the previous rounds, with a longer qualifying followed by a super pole, and then the 24-hour race itself on Halloween. A big, scary 24-hour race on Halloween. You couldn't pick a more appropriate date for it. And you guys must be really, really excited for that one, I'm sure. Yeah,
I mean, any Audi drivers will probably think it is a nightmare, to be fair. I mean, 24 hours around Spa with the Audi is going to be a bit of a challenge for them, isn't it? But yeah,
setups you could do.
But yeah, I think we'll have a good chance in the Ferrari. Not on outright pace. There is faster cars in the game. But I think if we, like Bathurst, if we maximise our strategy and our consistency and just make 0 mistakes, we should definitely try and definitely be aiming for a podium at the end at least. The way we managed to fight through the field in Bathurst was really, really good, and we just took advantage of everything. And if we can just do that whilst lapping consistently, I think we put us in good stead. And the Ferrari is obviously an extremely easy car to drive around Spa. It's very safe. So even on the stints during the night, which are obviously quite tiring, you haven't got maximum concentration because maybe you've had a lack of sleep. Even if you make a small mistake, it's not going to punish you as much as certain other cars. So
it's going to be a different beast, isn't it? It's today's race 8 times over.
Yes, Yeah, we're going to get to the 12-hour mark and think it's over, and then realise there's another 12 hours.
Yeah. It's Bathurst twice.
Yes. So yeah. I mean, are you looking forward to it, Gregor? Are you
definitely.
raring to go?
Yeah, Spa's one of my favorite tracks, so I always enjoy, driving there. Track limits will be also a big topic there because, I mean, it's very easy to get a cut, especially like at the top of Werrell or in Blanchimont, if you go too wide or so. And if you get a drive-through on Spa, everybody knows, you lose like more than a minute, so we'll be definitely...
Minute and a half, pretty much.
Yeah.
So even more, yeah.
And no one wants to lose 90 seconds, do they?
Don't forget the weather.
That's also...
loves weather. And it's at the end of October, so it's going to be cold. It's going to be a real...
I mean, you're painting a nightmare here, aren't you? Thunderstorms, 8 degrees, and 50 cars.
I mean, as long as the medical helicopter can take off, it's fine. So
there's no problems with that in the virtual world, Gregor. You can pleased to know.
No delays.
Well, guys, it's been a really fantastic championship from you guys. It didn't start off so fantastically at Monza. I mean, you had a great recovery drive. Silverstone and Nurburgring again, more recovery drives, but it's been a really fantastic performance. 2 second-place finishes in the last 2 rounds, and you managed to finish it off with P3 overall. So you've probably made Bossman Dave nice and happy, finishing 3rd in the championship. So hats off to you guys. Fantastic drives in all the races, and a very well-deserved 3rd place in the championship. I can't wait to see you guys what you can do in the 2nd season.
No, thanks very much for having us. Thanks very much for inviting us and allowing us to join the grid. And the organisation and the structure and everything has been top notch. I couldn't have asked to be in a better run championship. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, James. So kind.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you guys for having. I'll leave you now to go enjoy the rest of your evening and take some nice well-earned rest. And we'll see you very soon for the Spa 24.
No worries. Take care. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. So there was James Parker and Gregor Schill from the 888 Coach Dave Academy Ferrari. Finished P2 today and managed to secure 3rd place in the SimGrid Endurance Cup Championship in the Pro Class as well. Today's race was the final round of the SimGrid Endurance Cup. The first season of this now draws to a close. We saw winners from the 99 Pro Van Welten team in the Porsche in Pro Class. Winners of the Silver Class is the 95 Sidemax Motorworks Bentley, and Madhouse Racing winning in the 89 Aston Martin in Split 1. There was also a second split of the Endurance Cup, and a new season of the Endurance Cup will be coming up fairly soon. If you're interested in getting involved in our 2nd season of this championship, as well as the 2nd season of our Sprint Cup, as well as everything else that we do organise at the SimGrid, please do be sure to pop onto our website, www.thesimgrid.com, and from there you'll be able to register and join our Discord server. In terms of racing coming up, the next major event that we do have is the 24 Hours of Spa. This is the 3rd round of the SimGrid World Cup by Thrustmaster, one of the biggest championships in Assetto Corsa Competizione. It is an absolute mammoth of a race, the 24 hour. It's only been done a few times in the Assetto Corsa Competizione before, and this will be the biggest one yet. Biggest race of the championship and one of the biggest races ever held in the game. Some of the biggest talent available racing in this race, including some real-life drivers and some very, very top-level esport drivers as well. It's going to be an absolute belter for that one, and we'll have a fantastic commentary and providing commentary and streaming for the full 24 hours. Qualifying on the 29th of October and race day on Halloween, 31st of October. But for now, I would like to thank you very much for tuning in and watching today's stream, today's race at the Paul Ricard SimGrid Endurance Cup. It's been a pleasure having you all on to view all the drivers for the fantastic racing that they've produced throughout the series and today's race. And a big thanks to Luke Rogers and Josh Martin, who provided commentary earlier on throughout the race. And a big hands up to to Mike Yao providing the broadcasting, all the camera angles, replays, everything that you see on screen provided by him. A fantastic job to Mike as well. And thank you very much for all the work that you do behind the scenes, and to all the stewards. But for now, I wish you all a very good evening, and we'll see you next time.